And a welcome into the voice of college football on a championship weekend Saturday night. Appreciate y'all stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis based on what? Based on your participation. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. I will get to all the comments and questions that light up with the super chat, so I will not leave any of those go. I will be here all night if you want me to be here all night answering comments and questions and phone calls as well. We will do that. Absolutely. Just give me a break between the end of this show and the beginning of our noon Eastern time show. So be here tomorrow, unless we go all the way all night and into the morning. Unless we do that, be here Sunday, noon Eastern time. This is a tradition here at the Voice of College Football. We always show up to await the selections. That's why we're here. We will await the selections on Sunday together, noon Eastern time. Be here. I'm taking all your calls. We'll do it up big as we always do. You can check out previous years. We've been here for 5 or 6 hours on a selection Sunday. So we can do that. We will do that tonight if you'd like. 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, whatever your heart desires, because this is a huge, huge weekend. And of course, this is what it comes down to, championship. So my first cause of congratulations goes out to Duke, because this will probably be the last time we congratulate Duke, because they may or may not win some kind of bowl game that nobody will recognize, although a few million people at least will watch the game. They will not recognize this being a significant win. So congratulations to Duke. You should be able to enter the college football playoff as a conference champion. Those two should be linked. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that Duke should be in the college football playoff. I'm saying that we should have a format and a schedule connected to the format that is reputable and valid and connected to the point where you win a conference championship, because that's valid. You march on to the college football playoff. But Duke will not be doing that. Who would have imagined at the beginning of the season that the ACC champion would not go on to the playoff? But based on what we saw out of the ACC last year in Clemson, we could have possibly forecasted that. Second, congratulations, of course, goes out to Indiana. And again, one more note on the ACC championship game. I had it on the entire time during the Big Ten and the ACC, watching both games at the same time. But man, the older I get, the more difficult it is to focus on more than one game. So I can't say that I took a lot away from the ACC until obviously the Big Ten game ended. Phenomenal game. We'll talk about that, of course, with all of you. We get to the ACC game. So I saw like the last 5 minutes of the game where I could really lock in on it. Then overtime, exceptional stuff. Just college football at its best, at its finest, at its most dramatic. As I understand it, the young man who made the interception for Duke that sealed the win deep, deep on the depth chart. Is this guy going to play in the NFL? No. May not even play for Duke next year. Who knows? Maybe he's a senior. But whatever. Just phenomenal stuff. Just phenomenal stuff. Love it. I would have loved, it just hurts me that Virginia is not going to the college football playoff. That is my biggest pain on this day. That's my biggest suffering on this day, is that Virginia is not going to the college football playoff, because ever since they got that first initial win against Florida State, and I looked at their schedule and I was like, oh, they beat Louisville this week. They can do it. They can get to the college football playoff. I have been rooting for Virginia more than just about anybody else in the country to make the college football playoff. So that hurts me, but I do like that Duke won the ACC championship, and I believe that's the first one since Steve Spurrier's team back in 1989. Did not hear any references to that tonight, but I'm sure they said it at some point. But I do recall 1989, Steve Spurrier and Duke, Ben Bennett at quarterback. Remember that team won the ACC championship. And ironically, I remember a Indiana Duke bowl game at the Pinstripe Bowl about 6 to 7 years ago, where David Cutcliffe's Duke team won their first bowl game since like 1963. So two of the worst programs in the history of college football with huge nights. And again, let's not discount what Duke accomplished tonight, because that is phenomenal. It's a great football game. On to the Big Ten championship. Obviously, Ohio State may still be the best team in the country. Maybe Indiana's the best team in the country. Maybe we saw Georgia emerge as the best team in the country. Guess what? We've got a playoff. In the past, we would have to argue this. There would be people that would argue and say, well, Georgia's the most talented, plus they won the conference championship and won the big game. And they won it decisively. They're number one. There would be others that would say, well, Ohio State's still the best team in the country. They just missed a field goal and they just had an off night. And then others would say, no, Indiana knocked off Ohio State, the defending champs. And they're going to all play. So we can rail on the college football playoff. We can rail on the system. We can rail, and I do as well. So I'm not blaming you. I do as well. It could be a much better system. But you know what? I was just explaining this to a couple friends that called tonight. I was saying, this is the best system we've ever had in the history of college football. So understand that. It's kind of like when conveniences in life become so ridiculous that we take them for granted, and then we're waiting for things for like 4 seconds on our phone, and we think it's the end of the world, not realizing like we would have to go to a library 25 years ago, and now we got to wait 3 seconds, and we get pissed off. It's the best system we've ever had. It may not be the 12 best teams in the country. We know it's not. We know it's could be the top 10 and then 2 more. Or even if the committee, based on our estimation, and we'll kind of run through who should be in the playoff, and we'll run through, hopefully, if we have time, depending on how long we're here tonight, we will run through who should be in the playoff. We'll run through who I think the committee is going to select. But there's going to be about 4 teams that get, quote unquote, screwed. But it's a 12-team playoff. You lose 2 or 3 football games, you only have yourself to blame, but we'll have just as good a credentials as those teams that make it. Maybe with Alabama's performance today, Alabama looked like a very average football team like they have in recent weeks. So if you're just evaluating eyeball test and saying Miami, Notre Dame, Alabama gone, eyeball test. But if you look at the metrics, if you look at the strength of schedule, the strength of record, Alabama played such a more difficult schedule than the other 2, and they beat that team that they played today. Oh, that was back in September. It didn't count. All right. Anything in the chat we need to get to? I guess we will. Here we go. David, thank you so much for the contribution. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much for that, David. Very nice of you. So, yes, we will pick up the extra hour for sure, and we can keep going from there, possibly. Just a Hoosier. Let me try that again, Jim. Just a Hoosier shout out. That game represents why I'm a college football fanatic. Yeah, it was a phenomenal game, and it was a defensive game, even. So, again, Jim, thank you so much for the contribution. David, thank you. So thus far tonight, we are sponsored by David and by Jim. And won't that be a off-season topic? All right, Muley stopping by to be our first caller. Muley, what's going on?
Well, let's get right into it, Mark. Who do you think should be in the playoffs between Bama, Notre Dame, and Miami?
Yeah. I really don't know. I'd have to sit back. Like if I was on the committee, and I'm not trying to dodge the question because that's why I'm here, but I don't have the wherewithal to sit here. Nobody wants me to sit here for if I was on the committee's got all night, that's what I would be doing. I would be spending hours going through, and I'm not going through offensive metrics or defensive. I don't think those matter. Do they tell us how good teams are? Absolutely. But I'm just going through how good, but basically the strength of the wins, the strength of the losses, and the performance. So I guess you could say to a certain extent offensive and defensive metrics, depending on how you define that. But off the top of my head, I went into this weekend thinking there would be no way that I would consider Alabama to drop because they're playing the number 3 team in the country. And I don't like a team being penalized for having to play a championship game. They're being penalized for playing a championship game, but at the same time, I can't deny that it's a data point they're playing. We're not saying, okay, this is the SEC championship game, but it's an exhibition for the loser. And we don't know who the loser is going to be when we start, but whoever it is, it's an exhibition game for them. It's kind of stupid. So there's no good answer for that. But it's a data point, and they played and they looked awful. But I don't see Miami and Notre Dame playing Georgia either. And I don't see them playing them twice, and I don't see them beating them. They could possibly, but they'd have to play a heck of a game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like a bunch of people kind of came together and said, oh, well, just as like at least a surface level compromise, as long as you don't get blown out, that should be fine. Well, Bama's gotten blown out now. And now a lot of people are calling for Bama to get out. But it just feels weird because, for one, Bama has beaten this team. They quite literally beaten this team already. I'm not saying that Bama should be in still, but it's one of those things where they were fine. I see people in the chat saying that, well, what about the FSU loss? The FSU loss was factored in right before the game.
Sure.
First of
it's
all,
been factored in the entire season. And that is a bad loss.
Yes.
But Alabama's wins are so much better than Notre Dame and Miami's, and that's what makes this really strange. So Bama's last performance on the field is awful, but it's also awful against maybe the best team in the country. And then they also beat that team, and they also have so much better wins than Notre Dame and Miami. Miami and Notre Dame's wins are paper thin. They're not impressive.
Yeah, and for Notre Dame, obviously the thing, especially with Notre Dame, is they got 2 losses by 4 points, right? That's the main thing that they have. I'll say this. Because I've also seen people making the argument, well, if BYU is going to get penalized, then Bama should be penalized too. And I'm like, no. BYU was already out of the playoffs. They were already on the outside. They weren't going to make the playoffs to begin with, unless they had won. So if they had lost close and Bama had lost close, it would have still been the same. They would have still been out based on.
Yeah, I'll let since we're going to be on here a while, I may address the BYU thing because it doesn't matter because they get blown out. They're out of the playoff. They're done. However, I think that there's some seriously flawed thinking out there about BYU and how they should have been considered. Actually, it's very easy to make. Let's forget everything we watched today, BYU and Texas Tech. Let's go back to noon Eastern time today and say BYU loses to Texas Tech on a walk-off field goal. It's a great game. It's another Duke, Virginia game, another Indiana, Ohio State game. It's down to the wire. BYU loses that game. Do you realize that you can make a very easy argument that BYU's resume at 11-2, having lost that game that close to Texas Tech, if that would have been the case, is a better resume than Texas Tech's is right now. Or I'm sorry, if Texas Tech had lost to BYU, meaning I don't understand Texas Tech. If they lose today, they're protected. There was no talk about Texas Tech not being in the playoff. They could have lost 50-0. They're in the playoff. Well, they would have been 11-2 and not had as good a resume as BYU having lost today. BYU's got much better wins than Texas Tech. Texas Tech has beaten 3 teams that have winning records. 3.
So, let me try to go through this because Texas Tech and BYU's both their best wins are both against Utah, correct?
Sure. Yes.
And Texas Tech beat Utah by more. Of course, it was close in the fourth quarter, and then they piled it on.
Sure.
They still beat
and I have no issue with that. Yeah, that's a performance evaluation, and Texas Tech was better against Utah than BYU was. Absolutely.
Right. I get what you're saying in terms of the wins itself, but Texas Tech, barring a 50-point loss, Texas Tech was blowing out teams consistently, whereas BYU 3-point I mean, the worst win was the Colorado win, but they had quite a few close wins. They had to win at Arizona, but that was a 2 overtime win. That for me, that I consider that more of a. I mean, it goes on the win. You guys still have to consider it a win, but when it comes to evaluating it, it's more of like they basically tied and had to go to overtime to decide the winner.
Muley, look at this. I posted this today. And
Okay.
of course, once BYU started getting blown out, people are looking at this and making stupid comments. And I'm thinking, why can you not differentiate a hypothetical scenario versus what we're watching on the field? Obviously, once BYU started getting their butts kicked, they're not a playoff team. That wasn't my point. My point was, look at this. If Texas Tech would have lost today, this is their resume. There are their 3 wins over winning teams. So they won 9 games. I'm sorry, they would have been 11-2. 8 games they would have had wins against teams with losing records. They would have beaten BYU, 12-1 Big 12 champion, Utah 10-2, Houston pretty paper thin, weak 9-3, but still 9-3. Their losses would have been against BYU 12-1, Arizona State 8-4. If BYU would have lost today, which they did, so this is still their resume, but obviously they got trounced by Texas Tech twice. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And I want to be clear, I am not touting BYU as a playoff team, but as a last second loser today, if it would have been an epic game that they played great and lost, I would have been throwing this in people's faces to say, look at their wins. Utah 10-2, Arizona 9-3, Iowa State 8-4, TCU 8-4, East Carolina 8-4, Cincinnati 7-5. Look at that string of wins versus Texas Tech's wins. And they would have lost to the same team, which maybe that's just a bad matchup for them. They would have lost to the same team twice, who is the Big 12 champion and the number 4 team in the nation. That makes no sense.
I do have points. I don't know if you want to keep going on this, or just continue on the playoffs.
Well, it obviously didn't happen, so we don't have to go too far. But if you want to say anything, certainly I brought it up.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say, because for one, the Arizona State loss. As you know, I know you're aware.
Yes,
that their backup quarterback. Also, Arizona State has been just decimated by injuries, not just with Levitt and Tyson being in and out, but they've had other injuries going too, and they've dropped a couple of games. I mean, yes, it was a bad loss to Arizona. I don't know how Arizona State would have looked if they were to have been healthy, you know. And
I know healthy, they weren't good enough to beat Mississippi State.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true. They were healthy when they played Mississippi State. But
again, I'm just laying this out there as not necessarily saying that if BYU would have lost on a last second field goal, that I would have been saying they have to be in the playoff. I would have been saying, I just don't understand this. The Texas Tech, the 11-2 Texas Tech team as a Big 12 championship game loser is automatically in the playoff, and a BYU championship game loser, regardless of how close it is automatically out of the playoff. And people's responses on social media were, and this is ridiculous, well, Texas Tech's number 4 in the country. They're not going to drop that far. BYU's number 11. How are you going to raise BYU at number 11? Well, the committee should not be raising and lowering teams. They're supposed to deconstruct the season, and they're supposed to work through the resumes like they're completely fresh and new, because the resumes do change every week. Even for the teams that didn't play, their resumes change.
Okay, no, I completely agree with that. No, I see what you're trying to say. Yeah, but you know, going back to the original like thing with the Bama and whatnot, I think it may have to be done to where the committee has been raising Miami for over the past couple of weeks, like slowly, like having them jump Vandy, having them jump Utah when they had no reason to jump them. And with the overcorrection, I think the committee is going to may try to find a way to get Miami in, maybe not even penalize Notre Dame and take Bama out, because they can say, hey, well, look at how Bama played in this game. they have gone down. They have really just got blown out, and it's really frustrating too because Bama could have made, even though Bama was clearly dominating that game, they could have lost by 14 if they didn't go for fourth within their own 20-yard line.
Yeah.
Because the defense was sorry.
Yes. So from a cosmetic standpoint, you're correct. If they were just thinking, okay, we got to get on the bus and get out of here at 21-7, but they need to try to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
They should be. They should be competitive and try to win the game still. Number one. Number two, if the committee's that stupid, then we've got serious problems. If the committee's not understanding of that, then we do have serious problems.
But it starts comparisons like, hey, it's a 14-point loss versus a 20.1 loss. I mean, obviously, you're right, it's stupid, but I
expect fans to talk like that because that's not their job.
Mm-hmm.
But the committee is supposed to know, okay, it was 28-7, but a team was trying to win the game. Therefore, they did something that you wouldn't reasonably do in the course of a football game and go for it on 4th and 2 at your own 15-yard line. Like that they should just be understanding of that.
Right. I mean, I still don't understand at that point, but no, I get what you're trying to say. And also, lastly, is I have a point about the game is because going into the game, like I was actually kind of frustrated, and some Bama fans were too, that we had to again play Georgia because our injury report was not great coming into this game. We had quite a few guys out. We had Josh Cuevas out, Jam Miller, Cam Dewberry, Kevin Riley's been out. LT Overton, that's a big one.
Yep.
So, and now it's coming to this thing where it's like, where I don't think the committee will come to this. I don't think they'll think about this, but to where we could say, maybe if they're pulling strings and say, hey, well, Bama's been decimated by injuries. Yes, Georgia had Colby Young and Kyron Jones out, but Bama has a lot of injuries piled up, especially with the LT Overton, because when we lost Latham and Beeman earlier in the year, like our front is great. When everyone's healthy, our front is great. But once you take out one person, it shifts everything. We saw that early in the season when Tim Keenan came back, and Tim Keenan had a great game too. But not having Overton and then just made it really hard to keep putting pressure consistently. And Cuevas has just been our what you call it, our consistent like check down kind of player too. He's been one of the most consistent players. I don't know if it's going to be enough because I will say this too before I finish is if those guys weren't ready by the time the playoffs started, then you'd have to leave Bama out because with all these injuries, we see how they are. We know their depth isn't as good isn't that great. So if those guys were to be ruled out for the rest of the season, no way you can let the Bama in my opinion. But if they had a chance to come in, do you think maybe that could be considered?
The committee is supposed to be considering whether you like it or not, and we could argue this point all day, but I have no issue with it. As long as I can hear the conversations and understand that they really are looking into it and not just, oh, Jordan Travis is hurt. Okay. Like the headliners that they really would look through and have an understanding. LT Overton, Jam Miller. I don't know. Justin Jefferson left the field late in the game. I don't know if he came back.
And Xavier Brown.
Yeah, that they were understanding of these things and knew how good these players were. That they, if they're going to take injuries into consideration, that they're not just the headline injuries, the quarterback, and that's it, but they're really understanding of which teams are banged up and which teams would have strong probabilities of those players coming back.
Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of those players were questionable coming into the game too. So there's that. Anyways, Mark, I just wanted to harp on that. I'll give it up to some other callers. Thanks for letting me join.
Thanks, Muley. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Just want to let everyone know that so we start this show right after the games, but I want to cut and did an instant analysis. So I do appreciate everyone waiting while I do that because that brings in more eyeballs, those recap instant analysis videos than what we do here. So I like to get those done and get those out there as soon as possible. So thank you for your patience. Our buddy Ralph's got a great question. We can throw this in the chat, everyone. Today, so we don't know who's going to be in the playoff, but we got a pretty good idea. Who is your national champion right now? Throw your national champion in the chat. Meanwhile, I will talk to Adam. Adam, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, despite the Alabama loss. So I'll be quick. I just wanted to make a couple of points. So I hear a lot of analysts talk about how the games today were data points. It sounds very scholarly when they say that. My question is, data points relative to what? You cannot say that today's games are a data point, for example, to compare Alabama to Notre Dame and Miami because they didn't play. So it is not a data point that is in any way relevant to the decision you have to make, unless you want to say that one team losing a game somehow can elevate other teams that did not play. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's number one. Number two is when I look at the college football rankings, Alabama is 9, Notre Dame is 10, BYU is 11, and Miami is 12. So in my view, BYU will not make the college football playoff. That leaves Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, and those two other schools they have to include. I cannot conceive of Miami jumping Alabama. They are 3 spots below them. I think Miami is out. I could conceive of Notre Dame jumping Alabama and Alabama being number 10. What is the real travesty here, though, Mark, is that the committee is going to put in 2 teams, I believe James Madison and Tulane, who would have no chance of ever beating a Miami or a Texas and the like. So that highlights the unjust nature of this system because it really isn't the 12 best teams. What it is a system that guarantees you most of the best teams, but then puts in teams that have 0 chance of winning for no rationale whatsoever. So then it comes down to Alabama. Alabama played terrible today, okay? But they did beat that team earlier in the season. They were 7-1 in the SEC, okay? They had the 11th toughest schedule in the country. Miami did not have the same body of work. Neither did Notre Dame. So what would be the justification for taking Alabama out and elevating Miami or Notre Dame in while putting in these other 2 schools that have no business being there? I don't understand the logic.
So, first of all, your first point is one that you make frequently, and I totally understand it. You want the best metrics and minds to be put together to select the 12 best football teams in America, regardless of what their record is. The most talented, the best playing, the best performing teams, not the teams with the best record, or to give, some type of a recognition to so-and-so conference champion from the group of 5 or whatever. So, but that's obviously not the format. So it's not the committee that's making those selections. The committee makes 7 selections. The other 5 are auto drafted. They are, they're completely separate from the process was given to them, and now they operate within that process. So they're selecting 7 teams. The first 5 are made for them. So they're not doing that. Okay. The second point about Alabama versus Miami and Notre Dame is simply that there is a lot of objective metrics here, results, record, all of that. But then there is an evaluation of how well teams played. And if going into this weekend, and we have to consider that Alabama last weekend played a pretty marginal game against a 5-7 Auburn team, and they were elevated for doing that. But now they played roughly the third best team in the country, and they did get blown out, but they're possibly going to take a huge hit for this. That doesn't seem real consistent.
Okay.
So just one last point, Adam, would be, again, anytime you don't look at it as has traditionally been the approach of the AP voters and the coaches voters, and I just think the way we've grown up in this is that you just kind of look at the previous week, and then you say, well, Alabama was number 9. They lost to number 3, but they lost pretty badly. Let's drop them to number 12. It's just kind of this guesswork of raising and lowering teams rather than saying, you know what? Let's forget everything we did last week, because if we're really doing this correctly, we're not just moving teams, spots. We are deconstructing the season and we are rebuilding it, because, in fact, even Miami's resume changed this weekend. Everybody's resume changes every weekend, even if they don't play, because the teams on their schedule or the teams that they played are playing. Therefore, everybody's resumes are changing. So they need to be reevaluated. So even if the committee did not see one play of football this year, they should be able to sit down and look at the metrics and the results of the games fresh and say, okay, let's build our top 25. So in that case, Alabama could drop from 9, whatever they are, 9 to 12 or 9 to 11, I guess would knock them out of the playoff. That's completely conceivable.
So last week,
yeah,
Alabama was ranked ahead of Notre Dame and Miami.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed to justify a conclusion that Notre Dame or Miami should be ahead of Alabama simply because Alabama lost to the third-ranked team in the country, which they previously beat. That does not provide a justification for either team. But if you want to broaden that analysis, let's see who Notre Dame beat. Well, they lost to Miami. They lost by a point to A&M. They beat Purdue. They beat Arkansas. They beat Boise State. They beat NC State, USC, Boston College, Navy, Pittsburgh, and they put 70 on Syracuse, and they beat Stanford. That body of work does not compare in any way whatsoever to Alabama defeating Tennessee, defeating LSU, defeating South Carolina week after week after week, defeating Auburn on the road, defeating Vanderbilt. So this is not an extra data point vis-a-vis comparing those teams, and the same goes for the Miami Hurricanes. They beat Bethune-Cookman. They beat Notre Dame. They beat South Florida. They beat Florida. They lost to Louisville on their home turf. They beat Florida State. They beat Stanford. They lost to SMU. They beat NC State. They beat Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Pitt. When you look at the body of work, even assuming that this is a relatively comparable data point, it provides evidence only in favor of including an Alabama team that I don't think is very good, but comparably should get the spot. And that's my point. And the last point I would ask you is, when are the rules going to change so that we are not putting in teams like JMU and Tulane? It is a disgrace because teams like Texas and maybe this year Miami, maybe it's Alabama, get left out. That's not the 12 best teams, and that's really sad because that's what I thought the endeavor was here. I thought it was to create a credible playoff.
Well, I think it is a credible playoff. It's the most credible one we've ever had. So there's no question we have the most valid playoff system we've ever had by far. It's not even close.
I would agree with that. I would agree.
Yeah, a 10-year-old could come in and you could just hand him the standings in college football, and they could come up with roughly the 10 of the 12 best. Anyway, No, I agree with you. Number one, Adam, I agree with you that it's not the best format. It could be much improved, much better. The selections could be made even within this format could be made better. But to your previous point, yes, Alabama has a better resume than Notre Dame and Miami. But is the committee, they give us hints, more than hints, that they are of recency bias. Like they're not evaluating the season, they're evaluating where the team stands right now. They give us a lot of indication that that's what they do, and Alabama is trending down.
Yeah, and I guess part of my opinion is influenced by a deeper cynicism that I've experienced in my own life with people who fail upwards into positions of power. And largely, I find them to be quite incompetent and wonder how they get there and how we got here. I suspect that if people with a little bit of more common sense would have designed a playoff system, it would have been a lot better than this, such that we don't have teams like Texas or Miami out of the playoffs and James Madison in the playoffs. And so that just doesn't make any sense. But if you look strictly at the records and the body of work, I think Alabama gets in. I think they ultimately lose. But it also proves a broader point that no matter how many teams you include in a college football playoff, it's always going to be controversial. And I'm of the opinion that we need fewer teams in the playoff, not more. Thanks for listening to me, Mark, as always.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you being here.
Have a great night.
My math skills are actually pretty decent, but I keep going through the super chats just trying to determine that how long we'll be on tonight. So you got 1 hour out of me. And then David, thank you so much for the contribution once again. That gets us hour 2. And then we've got under construction. Thank you so much for the contribution. That gets us hour number 3. And then Jim, we thank you so much for that. So we're at 3 hours. And we've got a super chat coming in from Vandy Dandy. So I believe we are $45 away from hour number 4. All right. The college football playoff chairman specifically knocked Vandy for only beating Auburn by 7, but Bama got rewarded for the same thing. You are correct, sir. Inconsistencies all over the place. Vandy is going to get screwed. Now, Vandy does not have an overwhelming line of victories, but they do play in the best conference. They have an extremely close loss to Texas on the road, 34-31. They were getting blown out in that game. They came back. I got to say, I didn't watch that game. I did watch most of the Bama game. Close game till the fourth quarter. They lose by 2 scores. Okay. Otherwise, 10-2, and they're not getting any consideration. Can you imagine any other name in the SEC? Except maybe Kentucky, maybe Mississippi State. There might be a few. But if this was LSU or Auburn, on down the line, Florida, Texas A&M, that had the same exact credentials, results as Vanderbilt and was 10-2 in the SEC, would they be treated this way? Would they be number 14 in the country right now? I think not. Vandy, obviously, let me think. They beat a 7-5 LSU team. They beat, where are their wins? I know they've got a couple good ones. I'm losing it right now. LSU 7-5, Missouri 8-4. There's another one out there somewhere. So the line of wins, not great for Vandy. There's another one in there somewhere that I'm not coming up with. Yeah. So again, 10-2 for Vandy. I hate to see them get left out of the playoff, but yeah, I wonder what their strength of schedule is. All right. So thank you so much for that. And then we've got David, 4th hour. Appreciate that, David. Thank you so much for that. Okay. All right, let's get back to the lines here. We got Hall of Fame Trey stopping by. Hello, Trey.
Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. We've seen a lot of good games today, didn't we?
We sure did. Well, we saw
Uh,
a couple. I don't know that we saw that many. We saw two.
well, the first thing I will also say, I will say this first.
Yeah.
Indiana and Ohio State are the best in the country, both of them. It didn't matter who won it to me. It actually didn't matter who won it in that game. Both of these teams are the best in the country, 1 and 2, and they deserve to not lose a spot. Whoever lost that game, as close as it was, they don't deserve to move off of 1 and 2. That is clearly 1 and 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see what the committee does with that. I think you make a great point. I think most
I think
people
the
would
top
agree
four
with
should
you,
stay the
but Georgia could, but the committee could say Ohio State's 12-1, Georgia's 12-1, Georgia won a conference championship, and it happens to be the best conference. Therefore, they are going to be number 2. That's what I would expect the committee to do.
I like the top 4 to stay the same, Mark. Those are the best 4 teams in the country in the playoffs. Those 4 teams you don't want to play at all, especially Georgia. Georgia showed me a lot. They're still dominant. When it's the big games, they still know how to crunch down, and they really shut down Alabama. Usually Alabama beats them in the SEC title and period. But it could have been a lot worse for Alabama, to be honest with you, Mark. It could have been a lot worse.
It could have been Alabama looked like a marginal, just average football team, or maybe just Georgia looked that good. Georgia's rounding into form. Their defense looks devastating. And
Ooh, I tell you, Mark.
yeah,
I tell you what, man, it's gonna be one of these 4 guys in the playoffs. They look the most rounded team. I mean, they are very complete. You didn't see no flaws. I think they were better than Ohio State and Indiana today. I'm not talking about the whole season. They should jump more too, but they are the most rounded in the championship week today. They look complete. That's the dangerous Georgia we always know in these big games, and we finally have them completed, and they are so dangerous that they could be Ohio State and Indiana or Texas Tech. These guys have the 4 best defenses when it's on the line, and those 4 best defenses showed up today.
well, that's a great way to put it too. If you're just looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think you nailed it with those 4. And I'm trying to think who else in the country we could throw. Oklahoma, you could throw.
I'll say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, they could challenge, but you would not get an argument out of me if you said those are the 4 best defenses in the country.
When the lights are on and it shines the brightest, Mark, I tell you what, Indiana, it's going to be hard to move the ball. And I'm not talking about offense. And these 4 teams alone, they can win on defense and who bends and breaks. If these 4 teams ever meet in the playoffs, it's going to be hard to move the ball, Mark. With these 4 defenses, it is hard to move the ball. Now, the one that can score the most points probably is Indiana. They have showed they can break Ohio State's defense a couple of times throwing down the deep ball today. Indiana impressed me today. They have no quit. They had a lot of grit. I thought the first couple of snaps when the quarterback went down today, Mendoza, I thought Ohio State sent a message. It's going to be one of them days of Ohio State is going to dominate this game, Mark. But Indiana showed some great grit, and they came out swinging today, and they deserved to win the title.
They did. They deserve to win the title. That said, if Ohio State makes a field goal, then who knows what would have happened on the last drive or overtime. And Ohio State did throw for more yardage than Indiana.
But it surely didn't look like it, Mark. They looked like they couldn't get anything going. They couldn't get
their last really 2 drives were works of art up until bogging down at the 5-yard line.
Yeah,
they were before that.
But at times they looked like they were stuttering. They couldn't convert. It in the red zone as much. Indiana too. Like I said again, best two defenses. But at times it seems like Jillian saying just looked like he was lost sometimes. Mark,
He was
he looked
lost. Well,
he
let's
looked-
not overstate this. Let's not go crazy here. He
No,
went like
okay.
21 for 26. I don't
Yeah,
think he looked
but
like he was lost.
he looked very uncomfortable. I would say that.
Sure. Okay. I
And
guess.
sometimes,
Yes, he didn't have his best
Yeah.
game, and he got off to a bit of a rough start. Obviously, his second or third throw, whatever it was, the first drive was a pick, and but he
Very
recovered
rough.
nicely. I thought he had another great game.
he had an average day, in my opinion. Mark, he had a pretty
Average
day.
for him. He might be
Yeah,
the best
yeah, that's
quarterback
what I
in the
meant.
country.
But as long as we've been looking at him this year, that was basically average on his part.
Yeah,
As
he
looking
completed
for him.
80% of his passes. Yes,
Yes.
he was average.
Yeah, and it don't look like he was setting his feet. It looked like he was moving around. He got
No,
uncomfortable.
he was
Totally
he was
uncomfortable.
fine.
Uncomfortable as hell. And I wouldn't blame him. Indiana came after him, and it was enjoyable. But I'll say this in a very important part. Now the playoffs is going to be interesting. Now we might have two group of 5 teams in the playoffs, and maybe one spot left between 3 teams. That's going to be difficult. I want to say this, Mark. Alabama's going to be out in my book here. Alabama, they look terrible. It looked like Ty Simpson was completely lost. It seemed like Alabama didn't want it as much as Georgia. And a win or even a close loss to Georgia, Mark, would have kept them in the playoffs, in my opinion. Just like BYU, they didn't show up, and it's going to look bad on them today. It's going to look bad. I think everybody's seen how bad they are. BYU, I thought they can, be okay, but the way they showed up as well, they might be out of the playoffs. It could be Notre Dame and Miami looking for that playoff spot, and maybe two group of 5 teams that could be in it. But also, what about Duke? Now, will Duke somehow, and I'm not saying they're going to do it, but maybe it's possible. We don't know what the committee is going to do with Duke. Could they jump?
Yeah, we do know what they're going to do with Duke.
Okay, what are they going to do with them?
They're not going to be in the playoff.
Do you think they'd be ranked
They-
enough?
They were showing a graphic all night that said that they've got less than 1% chance of being in the playoff. So Trey, they're 8-5 now.
Yes.
So they just won their biggest game of the year.
Yes.
This is their one ranked win. They beat Virginia. So they're 8-5. And so we've got 5 conference champions that are going to make it. So we got the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. And so we need 2 other ones. Well, Tulane started the week, I think, number 20 in the country.
I think so.
And they won a conference championship game by like 2 scores over an 11-1 North Texas team that was ranked right around the same place that Virginia was, like 2 spots lower. And then James Madison won a conference championship game by 17 points, and they were already ranked number 25 in the country. And I doubt if Duke was even close to being ranked. They were 7-5. There's all sorts of teams like Washington, Illinois, 8-4 teams, Missouri, that have to be ranked higher by the committee going into the weekend than Duke. Duke was probably like 38th in the country. They're not going to go to the playoff.
I will say this. I will make an argument real quick for them before Miami and Notre Dame. The only thing that got for them, Mark, is their losses were all, except for one, were all ranked teams. I mean, they can beat the drum all day long. They got some good quality losses. Yeah, they lost to, I forgot who they lost to, but they're all ranked at one point, except for UConn.
You're talking about Duke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they lost to their 3 non-conference losses were Tulane,
yep,
Illinois, and UConn.
Yeah, UConn was not ranked, but the other losses were pretty much ranked.
Yeah,
but
UConn
I don't think
went 9-3.
That's the only argument I got for them. I mean, yeah, you got some quality losses, but you just got your quality win, and now it's going to be James Madison and Tulane. That's going to be a weird part. But who's going to now? We've seen a graphic of Notre Dame and Miami. We've been on this topic for weeks. Now, when I looked at the strength of schedule, Notre Dame has the strength of schedule. but Miami has hold head to head. This is really bad because I really thought the BYU loss and the Alabama loss actually fit Miami and Notre Dame in. And I'm like, okay, conversation's over. They're going to just slide on in. Now we got Duke throwing a wrench in things, and that's going to make it more complicated.
Yeah, so I think that your playoff teams are basically, I've got, let's see, I just posted on this. I want to make sure I've got this straight. This is what I think the committee's going to do.
Okay.
And a lot of people may disagree because they may think that Alabama's going to hold on. And I also agree, Alabama has a much better resume than both Miami and Notre Dame. If you're just looking at a resume, they're not
Yeah.
playing well, but their resumes so much better. Their wins are so much better.
Yes.
But I've got this I posted. So, folks, if you're on Twitter, you can follow me there. So we've got Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Tulane, James Madison as the conference champions, and then Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Miami, Notre Dame, and I think Alabama, Vandy, Texas, and BYU are going to be the first ones out.
So we basically got these guys locked in unless something crazy happens, and I don't think Duke will be there.
Or the committee is going to keep Alabama because they lost to the number 3 team in the country, a team that they already beat. So they can always use that logic, and it makes sense. Then they're making the Miami Notre Dame decision.
What about with a blowout, though? That the last game was not a blowout when they won the first one. But,
but
this one was really bad. I mean, it got bad. They couldn't even score in the first half.
They beat the number 3 team in the country.
Yeah, but now
Miami
we have that
hasn't done
question.
that. Notre Dame hasn't done that.
But it just fixed it, almost like the Miami Notre Dame conversation. I wish they faced them again, right? Well, they faced them again weeks later, and you see, I don't think Alabama got it, and I hope to God, and you see on the graphic you posted, I agree with this. I totally agree with it, but you got to point that Alabama might get in, and it'd be pretty shitty. What they showed tonight was pretty bad. If they did that with Georgia, imagine if they get with Ohio State or Oklahoma with a good defense, and red hot Notre Dame.
It all depends, Trey, on what you think this should be. If you think that you just watched the championship game and Alabama looks like crap, so you're going to leave them out of the playoffs and you're going to discount everything else they accomplished, if that's the way you want to do it, then you're bound by recency bias. And you're not a resume guy, it doesn't sound like, because again, Alabama's wins are so much better than Notre Dame and Miami's.
But don't you agree that teams change throughout the year?
Yeah, so I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, what do you want? It depends on what you want. If you want the teams that are playing the best right now, then that's fine. Or do you want the best season resumes to go? And then we might as well just be honest with people and say the games in week 1 and week 2, they count a little bit. Not much. They count a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
Well, all the games don't count. So you know what I would suggest, and people are going to think this is ridiculous, but this is exactly what we're looking at. Weighting the games, having like a hockey point system.
Oh,
the first game's worth 1 point. The second game's worth 2 points, 3 points. That doesn't have to be exactly the way it would be, but something like that, where by week 12, we're playing 12-point games.
Oh, that's
the way people seem to be looking at it.
Now, that'd be interesting with the point standings. I wonder how that will work out. I think that'd be really interesting, but somebody's going to complain anyway. Somebody's going to be really mad. Notre Dame, they proved themselves over the year. Miami, even though they had a couple of hiccups, they did beat Notre Dame. I will honor that head-to-head. It seems like there is no issue, and it seems like you agree on the post. That's fine. But I hope that God, for everybody's sake, do not leave out Miami and Notre Dame. I mean, you want to talk about the 2 hottest teams right now. That could be anybody in the country, maybe except for Georgia, Indiana, and Ohio State and Texas Tech, they could beat anybody else. Now, I'm not going as far. Now, I might bat for Notre Dame at times, but I'm not that crazy to take on those big four top four teams. Now, I mentioned earlier.
If Alabama gets in, I'm going to have no problem with that. None.
Really?
No problem with it. No, they've got much better resumes than Miami and Notre Dame.
So what's the point if they get smacked? They surely got smacked by Georgia. Wait till they get
Miami lost to SMU in Louisville.
That's what I said. And no one wants to agree with me. Notre Dame is better than Miami. Even though they lost to Miami, they did not lose to SMU in Louisville. They lost to Texas A&M and Miami. Those are two better teams than the ones they lost.
But they played Miami. Don't you believe in head-to-head competition?
At first, yes, but when it comes into strength of schedule and what you look like at the end of the year than you do in the beginning, no. Okay. Because it's like two completely versions of the team.
Then I don't know really how do you get a hold of your calculations for determining these teams. It just seems like whatever you feel like that day.
No, it's not about that day. It's just like
it seems like it.
The resume matters.
Some of our phone calls when you say Pitt's great 1 minute and they're horrible 3 minutes later, you need to have criteria that you kind of lock in on and you believe in.
I would say that all I want is the best teams. And Alabama showed, even though they've seen some really bad consistency the last couple of weeks, they have not been very consistent. They couldn't beat, almost lost to Auburn. They're struggling versus Georgia, and they got blown out. Even though it wasn't that bad, they got blown out in a way.
I'm going to let you know one thing, Trey, and that's that we don't know who the best teams are.
It's not Alabama. They're not consistent enough. Notre Dame and Miami's consistent. Even though Miami had hiccups, I think they're a really good team. They just need to stop, turning the ball over.
Well,
that would make them lose.
Do you want the consistently 8th best team in the country, or do you want Alabama who could beat the best team in the country?
Wait, Alabama cannot beat what?
They beat Georgia.
That was weeks ago.
Oh, that was weeks ago. They got a whole new team now.
They didn't show that now. Where's that new Alabama?
Miami didn't show it against Louisville or against SMU.
That was way in the middle of the season.
Oh, yeah. Those games don't count. That's right.
No, they shouldn't. Well, resumes
matter. You're not counting those games. You are not counting those games.
If they're a really good team, Mark, they should be consistent in and out. Like Texas Tech, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State.
Texas beat Texas A&M the last game of the season. Look at how good they are. Let's put them in the playoffs. That's how good they are. That's how good Texas is right now.
What?
I'm going by your logic. That's how good Texas is right now. They beat Texas A&M, an 11-0 football team. Texas should be in the playoff. Oh, they lost to Florida a long time ago. That doesn't count.
No, it should count. They got beaten that bad.
No, that doesn't count because that was a long time ago. Trey, go find a mirror and look in the mirror, and we'll have a discussion here very soon.
I want to know who's your. I want to know. I love doing these conversations with you, but I want to know who's your top team right now after what you've seen.
Who's the best team in the country?
The best in the country.
Ohio State's the best team in the country.
Wait, you said Indiana. Wait, hold on. I thought you said Indiana.
I said they should be ranked number 1.
That means they're best in the country at this point.
No, it doesn't.
So you think
it means that they earned the number 1 ranking. They won the Big Ten championship tonight against Ohio State. But who do I personally believe is the best team? If they scheduled another game next week and I had to put my mortgage on the line, if they meet in the college football playoff, who would I bet on if I had to? Ohio State.
Oh, you bet your house on it, Mark?
Well, if I had to, I'm not betting my house.
I know, but you would bet your house on Ohio
State. I wouldn't bet it on Indiana. I'd rather bet it on Ohio State. Did you see last year's playoff? Did you see Ohio State lost to Oregon?
Sure did.
And then they played in the playoff.
Sure did. They transformed during that
Okay.
year, man.
All right.
I'd
I
say
rest
Texas
my
Tech.
case.
Here's
All right,
my
Greg.
best team in the country. It's Texas Tech.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it. Okay. All right. So we spent like 10 or 15 minutes talking about games that were 2 months ago that was 2 months ago. They don't count. Those were two. And then I bring up, well, Texas lost to Florida 2 months ago. That must not count. But that one counts. I'm confused. There must be a cutoff date there somewhere. Yeah, I don't know what the magical date to count these games are. Trying to figure this out. Having trouble with this. And Alabama looked lousy this weekend, so they shouldn't be in the playoff. And I am not sticking up for Alabama looking lousy this weekend. I didn't think that they were going to look that bad. They do look like a pretty marginal team over the last like 3 or 4 games. But their resume's better than Notre Dame and Miami's. If you're a resume person, Alabama should be in over Miami and Notre Dame. If you're a recency who looks best, then you're going to take Miami and Notre Dame over Alabama. Certainly. If you try to work a combination, more so like I do, performance and the metrics, the wins and the losses, all of that, then you have a tough call to make. I have a tough call to make. If I was on the committee, boy. So I'm just not a victim of the moment. Oh, Alabama got crushed today. They suck. Get them out of here. They lost. They just beat such better teams than Miami and Notre Dame did. Such better teams. And if we're going to go recent, if we're going to go in the moment, the most recent performance, it seems like a lot of people just want who are the best teams right now. Texas is one of the best teams right now. Texas finished 9-3. I don't know how many games they won consecutively. Maybe they were 5-3. Were they 5-3 at one point? Did they win the last 4? Trying to think if they beat anyone else good during that stretch. They won the Oklahoma game after the Florida game. We'll have to pull up Texas's because now we're getting into waiting the season, apparently. So I'm going to have to see. No, did they lose to Florida after the Oklahoma game? I'm forgetting. I know that they were close. They were both October games. Because then that would count for more because it's more recent. All right. So welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got Michael stopping by.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. But I got to ask you this, to be honest. What is it going to take for you to change your mind about Indiana?
What do you mean change my mind?
You keep saying Ohio State's the best team. Is it because of talent level?
What's going to change my mind?
Yeah.
There's a zillion things that could change my mind. Ohio State could lose their first playoff game or even their second playoff game and not look very good. Indiana could win the national championship. Indiana could beat them again. There's all sorts of things that could happen. Just because two teams played one time and it was as close as could be, and one of them missed a field goal and one of them made that doesn't.
Well, they each missed a field goal, but I digress.
Well, I understand that, but you understand all sorts of teams beat other teams. That doesn't mean that they're better.
Well,
that doesn't mean that Indiana's not better than Ohio State. You're just asking me who's better.
Yeah.
I still think Ohio State's better, but that doesn't mean that they are. That just means that's still my opinion. But why would I change my mind just based on one 13-10 game that they missed a field goal with 2 minutes left?
Because of your Ohio State fandom. Some people think you're really towards Ohio State and forget everybody else. But anyway, I gotta ask you this, though, Mark.
What? Okay, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it.
Like we just saw, we saw the same scenario. Well, it was different, but we saw a similar scenario when Ohio State played Oregon in the Rose Bowl in the playoff last year.
Yeah.
Do you know how confident I was that Ohio State was going to win that game?
I believe you're pretty confident, sir.
I was like 90-some% confident. Not that Oregon's not a great team. Not that I thought it was going to be 34-0 in the second quarter, because I didn't.
Who did?
I thought Ohio State was going to win the game, that they were not considerably better, but they were decidedly better, and they were.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that Ohio State's going to win the national championship for sure. There are a lot of really good teams. Indiana's definitely one of them. Georgia looked like they might be the best team in the country today, and they've looked like that for a few weeks now, and we know what Kirby Smart's been able to do. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if Ohio State and Indiana play again and Ohio State wins.
I wouldn't be surprised if they played in Miami.
Okay. That would be awesome.
I'm telling you this, Mark, and I said it all season. The Big Ten's going for getting the 3-peat this year, and the national championship team came from the Big Ten champion. I'm not saying necessarily it could be Indiana, because it could be
Either
Ohio
one of them.
State.
Sure, yeah.
I'm saying the national championship team played in Indianapolis tonight. The question is, who's it going to be?
I am pretty sure that the national champion played today, and that was either Ohio State, Indiana, or Georgia.
I got to ask you this right now. Here's my thing. I think, would it be wrong if Ohio State and IU just flip-flop? IU goes to 1, Ohio State, or are they going to move Georgia 2 because they won the SEC championship?
Georgia 2.
Would you be surprised if they stuck Ohio, just switched IU and Ohio State?
No, but I think Georgia's going to be number 2 because they play in a better conference and they won the conference.
Yeah, sure. And my thing is another thing I'm trying to figure out too is that it doesn't go. I go by what's going on now, not 2 months ago.
Okay,
that's how I
those
go
don't
by
count.
myself.
All right.
Well,
Gotcha.
I mean they count, but it weighs more to me
They
now
count
than back
what?
then.
Okay. So what's the percentage?
Like
Now, everybody that comes on here and has this, like, well, I look at the games just in the last few weeks. Like, when does that start? Like, when does your November 1st? Are those the only games we're supposed to be looking at? I'm confused by this.
I start when conference schedules, when they start doing the conference.
The non-conference games don't count.
Yeah, to a point, but not as much. I don't know how you wait. Do you weigh conference games more than the non-conference yourself personally?
No, I certainly put more weight in Ohio State playing Texas or Iowa playing Iowa State than I do Iowa playing somebody that they crushed, Wisconsin 37-0, or Ohio State mopping the floor with the dregs of the Big Ten like they do every year. It depends on the game.
Yeah, true. But hey, how can we change it?
What do we need to change? We need to change a lot of things, but I'm asking you, what for you, what do we need to change? When you say, what are we going to change? What do you want to change?
Better product on the field.
A better product.
To where, yeah, I know it's going to work out and even itself out, but I'm tired of seeing teams, the SEC, stuff like that. I'm just tired of teams like going down, like not even fighting hard.
Who's not fighting? Purdue, besides Purdue, who's not fighting?
After Penn State for a while, for the middle part of their season.
They weren't?
When you lose, to me, it seemed like when they went on that, 5 in a row, it seemed like they just gave up. And
then they decided not to give up? Do you really believe that? Do you believe that Penn State gave up and lost 5 games in a row or whatever it was? I know they were 3-0. Then, they must have lost about 5 in a row. And then they decided to try at the end? Why
How
would
else
they do
would
that?
how else would you say, Mark? I mean, when was the last
They
time
lost football games.
right?
They
Like-
fired their coach. They lost their starting quarterback. Uh, they- like these teams are full of a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds. Like we've got a pretty good lock on who's good and who's not good, but we don't have it's not down to a science. Like this happens. Uh, I thought I watched Penn State play almost every week. One of those losses was to Indiana, who you're telling me is the best football team in America. And guess
I
what?
know
Penn State took them down to the last play of the game. They weren't
basically.
trying.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to do it to make where it makes a little more sense. I guess why is it? I don't know, Mark. I'm trying to figure out how to get this to where it
I'm
makes
trying
sense.
to figure out what you just explained to me. Indiana is the best football team in the country, but Penn State gave up, and they still took them down to the last play of the game.
Okay, yeah. But what? Okay, let me ask you this. In my opinion, it started with the Oregon game. What happened with Penn State? I guess is what I'm saying.
They ran into what I think is the best football team in America, and they didn't have a starting quarterback. They had a guy playing who that was his
So Aller was
second
hurt in the
start
Oregon game.
ever. Aller got hurt against Northwestern,
I thought it was okay.
and then Franklin got fired, and then they went to Iowa the next week, and Gruckenmeyer started. That was his first start ever. He had to. This poor guy, his first 3 starts in college football were at Iowa, one of the best defenses in the country, one of the most difficult places to play, at Ohio State, and then home against Indiana. Those were his first 3 starts.
Oh, fair point, Mark. But what I'm saying is, what can it do for the psyche? I mean, like, what made him decide to say, like, okay, they lost 3 in a row. Why not get rid? Why is it time to get rid of James Franklin? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, we posted a video this morning about James Franklin and Matt Campbell and all of that. You may want to check out because we had our guy Marty Leap on, and he says that a lot of that was brewing well before that in terms of James Franklin not caring too much for the way things were being run.
Okay. So it kind of started before the Oregon, after the Oregon lot. Okay. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes, like I said, Mark, I'm losing brain cells in the back of my head. I'm trying to keep them, but sometimes it is what it is. But no, it is going to be interesting to see what happens and stuff like that tomorrow.
Oh, it's going to be mighty interesting. So who would you put in the playoff?
I actually would have Miami and Notre Dame in.
Okay.
Because the way Alabama looked to me
today,
they didn't deserve it. I mean, when was the last time you seen an Alabama team run for -3 yards? I don't even think
I understand your point. How good did Miami and Notre Dame look today?
Just like us on the outside looking in. But then again, on the flip side,
they didn't have to play.
But whose fault? Notre Dame's Notre Dame. But whose fault was it? Miami. They didn't take care of business.
Exactly. Alabama had to play a game. And I'm not excusing their performance. I think it has to be evaluated. But we have a bad system when some teams have to be exposed against some of the best teams in the country. And this could happen when teams are sitting at home on the couch and just kick up their feet and say, oh, look how bad Alabama looked. Well, did Miami have to deal with Georgia today?
No.
We have no idea what that game would have looked like. Maybe Miami would have beat them. Maybe they would have lost by a field goal. Maybe they would have gotten blown out like Alabama did. Maybe they would have gotten blown out worse than shoot. They're capable of losing to Louisville and SMU. So who knows?
Yeah, true. All right. I've wasted much of your time, but I wasted too many brain cells. I wish we could like just erase this and just start over from scratch. But anyway, I digress.
All right. Why? What would we erase? You can start over. What do you have to ask me?
No, Mark. I've already wasted enough of your time for tonight. I just took that couple minutes for being a total knucklehead.
You're not being a knucklehead.
It's just I'm just tired of like Big Ten. Like here you are, you getting somewhat good games every week in every conference. But like in the Big Ten, it seems like there's mostly blowouts and stuff like that. I just want a better product. That's what I'm trying to get to, I guess.
You think there are more blowouts in the Big Ten? You're probably right. I was going to look at that this year because I do think that there are more, because I think the elite teams in the Big Ten are way better than the bad teams, more so than other conferences. You know, Indiana and Ohio State are blowing out everybody, for example, and Oregon, just about everybody.
Yeah, that is true. All right, sir. I will see you in about, 11 hours?
You will.
Well, I mean, on the stream for the
Yes.
watch show and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, Mark. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. You too.
Yep.
All right, let's run through our super chats. We do appreciate those. We've got Joel who says, yes, Oregon, sneaky, under the radar, possibly. I don't know that a lot of people have been impressed with their schedule. They beat Iowa. They beat USC. Those are the two big wins. Oregon just sneaky at 11-1, quietly waiting to roll up. Maybe. I like Dante Moore. They've got a ton of talent. They suffered a lot of skill position player injuries, though. So we'll see how healthy they're going to be. And we've got Gold Foil Experiment. Number one, don't let the NCAA turn football into March Madness. Okay? Some people would like that. Others would not. But I get your point. I would like it to be more elite, not this, 32 teams. No. Number two, preserve value of regular season and historical rivalries. So most of those are still intact, but we could do better there. So should Nebraska and Oklahoma play every year? All right. Number three, only conference champions in the playoffs. This is beautiful. I love this. So no, hardly anybody's going to agree with you, Gold Foil Experiment, except for one of my best friends. He just said this to me today. He's like, why are non-conference champions playing in a playoff? Can't they organize this thing to where the conference championships mean something and those are the best teams playing? And I said, well, you'd have to restructure the whole thing. You'd have to tear these conferences apart and forget about tradition, and you'd have to even them out, and you'd have to do. And he's like, yeah, why don't we just have an 8-team playoff of 8 conference champions? So, well, that would be he is old school, like play it in a conference. Everybody plays everybody in the conference. And if you win the conference, you're the best team in the conference because you beat everybody else in the conference. Makes sense to me. So I actually love that, but we've had so much realignment that is never going to get accomplished because money rules this sport. So we can never kick Oregon out of the Big Ten and say, you know what, start up a new Pac-12 and we'll see you later. Point number 4, each conference have end of season 4-team tournament. No Notre Dame. I wonder if that means like Notre Dame needs to join a conference or you want to just annihilate them off the face of the earth. But that's a good tweet, or that's a good deal there. I do appreciate your super chat. Well thought out. Under construction and other stuff there. Matt Shell. Under construction, Matt Shell. Thank you for the contribution, sir. It's very nice of you. Texas, let's make a case, and I can come on the show to prove it. Okay, well, we've got a link here. Maybe you're lined up here. We will hear from you. You don't need to make a case for Texas for me. I can make Texas' case. Yes, it's not difficult. People think it's difficult because they're 9-3 and other teams are 10-2. A lot of the people that vouch for record being the most important thing and then we should just line them up based on record, for some reason, for a lot of those people that I talk to, it breaks down with BYU. Like they think Miami and Notre Dame should be in at 10-2, but BYU is 11-2. So BYU would go ahead of them. So if we just simply went by record, who would be in the playoff? We'd have Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. We'd have BYU, Texas Tech. If we had to keep the same format, I'm saying with the two group of 5 teams, so that's 7. Then Georgia, Ole Miss, they're 12-1, 11-1. That gets us to 9. And then we got Oklahoma's 10-2, Miami's 10-2, Vandy's 10-2, but BYU's 11-2. So one of those 10-2s would have to go. And Notre Dame, them as well. All right, next up, we got Minnesota Dave checking in.
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
What's on your mind?
Well, I had a lot of things on my mind about this.
All right.
The number
That's
one
good
thing
because
is,
we're going to be here like 5 hours. So
number one
plenty of
thing
time.
that I'm always bragging or talking about, I talked about it with Matthew, and if he even talked about it with you before, is
Yeah.
the conference championships, like tiebreakers, just make no sense. Because I
Exactly.
remember the old BCS way for the Big Ten when the Big Ten didn't have 12 teams yet, and it was in the BCS because the Rose Bowl decided to finally join the BCS. It was the highest ranked team
Oh.
won the conference.
No.
That was
Dave.
the tiebreaker.
No, it was not the tiebreaker.
That was the tiebreaker, Mark.
It was not the tiebreaker.
It,
Do you want me to tell you what the tiebreaker
it was
was?
head to head.
Do you want me to tell you what the tiebreaker was? There was no tiebreaker before a Big Ten championship game. Do you know the last year before the Big Ten championship game, do you know who the Big Ten champion was? Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Michigan State. There was a 3-way tie. They were all the Big Ten champion.
Yes, they were all the Big Ten champion, but the tiebreaker would get the better bowl game to get in the BCS was the highest ranked.
Oh, to go into the BCS Bowl. Yes.
Yes.
I thought you were telling me to determine who the champion was of the conference.
No, not to determine who the champion was. It was who was the tiebreaker to get the better bowl game.
Okay.
Before that, before the BCS came in the Rose Bowl decided to just still have the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. It was who was the longest without going to the Rose Bowl.
Which team had not been there the most recent? Yes.
Yes. So I feel like the ACC screwed themselves with not having Miami be in this. And I think that Bama also screwed themselves. I mean, they might not have totally screwed themselves. They probably are in, but they're in by the skin of their teeth.
Well, how did Bama screw themselves? They don't control their schedule or whether they get chosen to go into the
They go into the championship game. Well, I should say the SEC screwed it with the tiebreakers. Because I always felt that, why isn't like at least Texas A&M or Ole Miss playing the championship game?
Because, for one thing, Texas A&M played a god-awful conference schedule. It was horrible. So I can understand that. Basically, what that's telling us is that two teams had the same record, but one played this horrible conference schedule. So their 7-1 record in the conference isn't as valid as the other teams. Alabama was playing Georgia and Oklahoma and Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. You couldn't have served up a worse schedule than what they played. Out of their 8 conference games, aside from Texas, the other 7 were the 7 lowest teams in the SEC. So I agree with you. The tiebreaker systems are stupid. But that's actually one that kind of makes sense. Now, the one that got Duke in is like common opponents. it doesn't. You're right. I'm not going to go through the whole explanation, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and here's another one that didn't make sense.
Yep.
You know how I like MAC football, right? It's
Yeah.
like my parents went to Central. I had aunts
Sure.
and uncles that went to
Yeah.
Western and Eastern.
Yeah.
I Miami of Ohio lost to Toledo, got
Okay.
their butts kicked by Toledo, and still went over by then Toledo.
Well, wasn't there a 3-way tie?
Yes.
Because if there would have been a 2-way tie, Toledo would have gone. But there was a 3-way tie.
But they beat Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, but how do you break a 3-way tie with another team? You can't break it just between 2 teams. You have to include the other
then
team.
it's either Ohio or in Toledo, not and then because the lost the Miami of Ohio had to Toledo, just takes them out of the picture. In
Well,
my
I
opinion.
get your point. Hang on just a second. I'm going to pull up the MAC standings, and I'm sure, considering, I was looking at my videos today real quick, and considering that I posted a Penn State video that had like 6,000 views, and then right after it, I did a quick recap of the MAC championship game, and it had like 40 views. That gave me a big indication of how many people really care. So I'm sure like 100 people are going to leave the chat immediately when we continue talking about the Mac. But anyway, here it is. So here's what Dave is talking about, everyone. Western Michigan, okay, they're in the championship game at 7-1. Then you've got a 3-way tie for second, Ohio, Toledo, Miami of Ohio, all 6-2. And Dave is saying, makes no sense that Miami, Ohio gets to go to the championship game because they lost to Toledo. But it's a 3-way tie. So what do you do with Ohio?
You need to find out what the tiebreaker is for them. And I don't know what the heck the tiebreaker would have been.
So basically what you're saying, and I'm not saying this is a bad idea, is you're saying, well, Toledo and Miami played, so that's the tiebreaker for them. So you get rid of Miami, you got Toledo, and then you got to figure out a good tiebreaker between Toledo and Ohio. I actually think that makes sense. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you figure out like who played a tougher schedule or what were their common opponents' record, maybe that. See, when you're going 2 teams common opponents, then at least you're measuring just those 2 teams and how well they played against the same teams. But sometimes it gets screwy when there's like a 4-way tie and they only have like 3 common opponents. The bottom line is that these conferences are too big, and so there aren't enough teams playing each other.
Yeah.
How big's the MAC now? 14 teams? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's 13 teams.
13. Well, that's an interesting scheduling quirk with
because
UMass.
UMass just joined, and then, but it's going to go back to 12 when Northern Illinois leaves.
That's right. I forgot about that. Where are they going?
To the Mount West.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And just other things, I want to say congratulations to Indiana. Now Minnesota is now gone the longest without winning a Big Ten championship.
Oh, they're the longest in the whole conference, huh?
Yeah, 67.
Wow.
Yeah, they're the longest in the whole conference.
I guess they are. Yeah, everybody else except obviously the new teams. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the other thing is Roy, what's his name? The guy that passed away. He used to be the commissioner for the SEC.
Oh, Roy Kramer.
Roy Kramer passed away,
Huh.
and then
I didn't see that.
I didn't know he was the commissioner of the SEC. I knew he was the head coach at Central Michigan back when my parents went to that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he left to become the athletic director, and that's when Herb Duramity became the coach.
Yes, Roy Kramer is the man who devised the conference championship game.
Yep. And I did not know that he was a part of the SEC until today.
Okay, yeah. That's the only thing I knew him from myself.
Yeah, and he won he won the Division II championship with Central Michigan, and then they ended up going the next year to the MAC.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to get off right now and have other callers and listen in, and probably talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good, Dave. We'll be here.
Okay, talk to you
Appreciate
later.
it.
Bye-bye.
As Dave is reminding everyone, noon Eastern time, we'll be here when the selections are unveiled, which I would hope would be like 15 or 20 minutes into that show. So they'll do the big build up and they'll talk about everybody's resume and the controversies, and then they will go to the unveiling. And I think it's really going to come down to Alabama, Notre Dame, and Miami for the last 2 spots. I don't think Vandy has a shot, BYU or Texas. All right, next up, we've got stereotypical something. Stereotypical. How you doing?
I'm good. It's Buckeye though, Mark. Come on.
Oh, I can't see the rest of it. I just see stereotypical.
The limits of technology. All right. Well, you can probably guess what I'm talking about. First off, congratulations to Indiana. I mean, I had a feeling they could probably beat us, but man, that was impressive, man. Kurt Cignetti,
Sure.
He's got to be.
Yeah.
If you were to do a top 5 right now, I mean, I think you still have to have Kirby Smart. I would still have Ryan Day because, he has a national championship in the record. But man, I think Kurt Cignetti's number 3. I mean, that guy he's a smart coach.
For sure.
He lists out it's like he can see he can find every opportunity, and he just figures out a way around it with what he has and the resources he has. And I mean, they're doing a real. I mean, that's the crazy job that they're doing out in Indiana. But I kind of wanted to.
He's the best coach in college football.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to say otherwise. I mean, right now, we'll see in the playoff. Maybe they'll go up against Georgia. They'll get a chance to beat Georgia too. But the thing I wanted to kind of talk about with the Buckeyes, I think there's kind of 3 weaknesses with this Buckeye team. Obviously, the defense is great. The wide receivers are elite. I think they're fine and great at pretty much every other position. But man, the play calling tonight, and it's not new, right? We've seen this in every single game. Is the red zone defense is absolute? Sorry, not defense. The red zone defense is amazing. The red zone offense is atrocious.
It is.
And I think the reason for that is, you look at Ryan Day, and he's been head coach since 2019, and he was OC before that. But what were now this is all relative, right? All of Ryan Day's offenses have been pretty good while he's been there.
Sure.
But relatively speaking, what are the 2 worst offenses and I'm talking about years that you've seen at Ohio State? And it's all relative. They were good offenses, but relatively.
Sure. Yeah. Off the top of my head, since Ryan Day has been there, I would say 2023.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And 2020. Up until the playoff, I might have said last year.
Okay. I would say 2023 and 2025. And again, it's all relative. This offense is still good, but relatively compared to the rest of them, I don't think they're very good. Who was the offensive coordinator for those 2 years?
Well, we had Chip Kelly there last season.
In 2024. But I'm thinking in my opinion, it's 2023 in this year.
Well, Ryan Day or Brian Hartline.
Yes.
What you think is going on?
Right. Yeah. There is that discussion as well. But man, the offensive play calling it hits them in the red zone really bad. It leaves a lot to be desired. You look at, I think there's 3 weaknesses on this team. One is running. Which I think they've mitigated somewhat. 2 is the offensive line, which is a whole nother thing. I don't think Ryan Day's had an elite offensive line the entire time he's been a coach. They've never been a bad offensive line throughout a whole season, but they've never been an elite offensive line, particularly in the run game. And then right now it's specifically the red zone play calling. And I said this while I was watching the game. And I also heard this on the Buckeye Huddle podcast post game. They said the exact same thing in the first 10 minutes of the podcast. They lost tonight, first off, because, well, Indiana's a very good team. Hats off to them. But second off, they lost because of two particular plays. And they both occurred in the, and they say red zone, but really it's inside the 5 or 10 yard line. What they really struggle with is that their play calling there is terrible. So there were 2 3rd-and-1 calls during the game. And if they had made these calls different, it would have been better. It wasn't just like one of those calls where it's like, okay, well, they made the call and it didn't work, so therefore it's a terrible call, right? They were philosophically bad play calls.
Okay.
So what happened on both of these 2 play calls, they were 2 3rd-and-1 calls in the second half.
Yeah.
That they didn't convert on. The first one they didn't make it, and then they ended up going for it on 4th and 1 on the QB sneak, which, by the way, was the correct play call.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
I'll let you continue. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious as to what these play calls are, because the one that I'm thinking of was a play action rollout.
Yes.
That they tried to hit Bo Jackson on, and he was covered up, and then they went to the back of the end zone with Ben and Christian.
Yes, that was the second 3rd-and-1 call.
Okay.
And so just let me get to that. So they made 2 3rd-and-1 play calls, and there's kind of 2 things to this. One is kind of like an overall throughout the whole season of why they've been bad at play calling in the red zone. But it is what they have is they have a quarterback who is not necessarily mobile. It's 3rd-and-1. And so you roll him out, a non-mobile quarterback, and you essentially have a 1-read play call, or you're essentially eliminating 2/3 of the entire field on the pass. Right.
Yeah.
So the first play call was to Jeremiah Smith. And Jeremiah Smith's one of the best players in college football. But, dude, everyone knows, okay? You're rolling out, you're passing the ball, you have Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. You know what's going on, okay? And a competent team with a competent coach, with competent players and a competent defense like Indiana or some of the teams that are going to play in the playoff, they're going to sniff that out, right? And that's going to become not a winning play. So that was the first one. It was a rollout to Jeremiah Smith, and it was a 1-read play. Right.
Where did they throw the ball? I'm not remembering that play off the top of my head.
Well, it was a rollout, and it was a 1-read play to Smith, and that play has been, I think it's worked once or twice this year, but every other time it hasn't worked because it's anybody with more than 2 brain cells racing for 3rd place is going to realize where that's going, right?
Yeah, but I'm just curious. Where was the ball thrown? Was it thrown to Smith?
Yeah, it was thrown to Smith. Yes.
On 3rd-and-1.
It was 3rd-and-1 inside I don't know if it was inside the 5 or the 10, but it was inside. It was definitely at least inside the 10. And they needed to convert that. That was the play where before they went with the QB sneak to Julian Sayin on 4th-and-1, which was the correct call, just didn't work.
That his knee was down.
Yes,
so what
correct.
happened on the Jeremiah Smith play? It was just batted down or whatever. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was batted down. I just think it's a low percentage play compared to some other options.
Yeah.
Right. The second call was the tight end one you said, but again, yes, it was. He had more reads on that play, right? Like he had more reads on that play. But the problem is you're rolling an immobile quarterback out, so he can't really run the ball for the first down. And you're limiting his options to like 1/3 of the field when you're backed up inside the 5-yard line and it's a short field. And you know what they say about defense on a short field. That helps the defense out, right? They were philosophically bad play calls, right?
Yeah.
And I really think those were, I think that was like really the key for this game here. And that's not to say that this was not unique to the Indiana game. This is like a microcosm of the entire year where Ohio State has struggled inside the red zone. And we can kind of get into, there's a few reasons why that is. I'm specifically talking about this game right now, right? But to me, that's where this game was lost, right? Like, Indiana is just a good team with a great coach. And they were the better team on the field today, but like you're 3rd and 1 and you don't QB sneak it there, or you don't run it with your running back. That's ridiculous.
So yeah, they're obviously going to go. So you're talking about the second time when they missed the field goal, or when they went for it on 4th down?
I'm talking about both of them. I think both of those play calls were bad.
Talking about both of
Yeah.
them, but it sounded like you were getting toward the point that if you're going for it on 4th down and you've got a yard to go, then why not slam it in there twice, knowing you're going to go for it on 4th down?
Correct.
Yeah. No, I agree. When they were rolling out or whatever they did with Jeremiah Smith, again, I can't picture that play in my mind. I was thinking the same thing. Aren't they going to go for it on 4th down? So why don't they don't feel like they can get a yard on 2 carries? I would say the same thing. I was watching Duke play Virginia, and they're sitting they had just slammed the ball all the way down the field at 6 and 8 yards a clip. They get down to the 1.5, and they start all these rollout passes, and the quarterback's back to the 12-yard line, rolling toward the sideline. It's just like, what are you doing? Yeah, the red zone has obviously been an issue with Ohio State all year, and I would think that their self-analysis would be through the roof, trying to figure out what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, and I don't quite understand it. There's a couple issues there. One is the offensive line, particularly in run blocking, is not that great. Like, I'm not saying they're not bad; they're just average. They aren't elite like other aspects of the team are.
Yes.
And the other piece is that they've somewhat fixed, but almost in the wrong way. When they started the game against Texas this year, I looked over. I had some people I watched the game with, and I saw that game, and I saw Donaldson as the starting running back coming out. I was like, oh, that's not good. Why is some transfer quarter running back who he's not Judkins, right? He's not like a transfer like Judkins coming in who's like, okay, this guy's clearly starting level. He was like a Chip Trainum level guy.
Yes. Absolutely.
And he comes in.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, why is this guy the starting running back? And then it turns out Peoples isn't unfortunately that great, which I wish, I root for him. I hope he does well, but it's like, dang, how do you've been there 3 or 4 years and you're getting replaced by some guy who, is a Chip Trainum level guy. And it took Ohio State, and I don't know if this is Brian Hartline. I don't know if it's Ryan Day. I don't know if it's Carlos Lachlan. And honestly, I think it's Ryan Day. They don't know how to evaluate running backs when they don't have an elite option immediately available right in front of their hands, right? It's like they don't know. It's clear that Bo Jackson 3 to 4 games into the season was the best running back, right? And it took them, they got to the Michigan game. They had 7 chances to run it into the end zone in that game, and they're still running Donaldson. And I'm sitting there screaming at the TV, this guy, he might be physical, but he doesn't lower the pads. Why is it 12 games into the season, you don't realize yet that everybody else with, half a brain can see that this guy is not the guy inside. And so finally Ohio State realized that you didn't see Donaldson today inside. And so it's like, okay, great. Let's QB sneaker. Let's give it to Jackson. Nope. 3rd down and 1. Let's roll out with our immobile quarterback and pass in 1 read. I don't know. I don't know what they're seeing.
Well, so in terms of the running backs, my original thought was, okay, this is a severe downgrade this year. And it would be for most teams because they lost 2 NFL running backs that were taken at the top of the 2nd round. So that's going to be a downgrade for just about anyone. And I had seen CJ Donaldson enough at West Virginia to know that this is just a guy. And he's just, he should be getting 3 or 4 carries a game, if that. And he should be your 3rd guy. And he's just not explosive. He's not a burner. He's just not a special talent. He's just, so then when they came out against Texas and he was the guy, I thought, well, that's telling us that between Jackson and Peoples, they don't have anybody ready, or West. But there came a time in the season where it became pretty obvious to me, okay, maybe Bo Jackson's not ready to be a superstar, although he certainly is showing signs of it. But I mean, very early on, like within 3, 4, 5 games, that I thought, well, he's at least as good as Donaldson. And I understand they want to run Donaldson in short yardage, but here later in the season, Bo Jackson has become a much more physical runner than he was early on. He's seems just as effective, and plus he has the potential of being a home run hitter. So yeah, I don't really get the Donaldson use.
Yeah, it's been frustrating. So yeah, that's the whole thing with Ohio State. Yeah, the running backs, I think they've somewhat figured them out. Apparently, they haven't figured out how to use them yet. Apparently, they for some reason they don't trust them, and they're gonna roll out a non-mobile quarterback, on 3rd and 1. So that needs to change a little bit. The defense is elite. I do feel good if you're going to lose a game. If you're an Ohio State fan, you're going to lose a game. This is the one to lose, right? Hopefully that gives them some motivation going into the playoff, like the Michigan loss, which was ironically a 13-10 loss. With missed field goals and all. Speaking of which, the most anti-clutch player in the last decade for Ohio State, Fielding. No one be sending any threats to these kids, but dang, like the guy cannot make. He doesn't have many chances to make clutch field goals, but he certainly he doesn't seem to be very good in them, unfortunately. And so I'll leave it with that. Last thing I got is, and I only spend 30 seconds on this because no one will care about it. I'm also a Toledo fan. Thank God Jason Candle is out. Tired of seeing him taking the best, talent in the MAC for all that counts, and kind of ruining it, and losing to BG every year. So hopefully he has a good time at UConn, and hopefully he's not our Bo Pelini.
Very nice. Well, we appreciate you calling. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Astute work there. And I would say that there's nothing about there. There were a few things that I didn't necessarily completely confirm, but there's nothing there that was stated that I disagree with. We've got Defiant stopping by. Before we get to Defiant, hang on just a second, sir. We've got a super chat coming in from Starch Manning. The committee usually punishes bad losses on championship weekend. I think it's Texas versus Miami versus Bama for the final spot. Notre Dame is probably safe. Hang on just a second here. The committee usually punishes bad losses on championship weekend. I'm trying to think when this has occurred. Somebody in the chat, let me know. I cannot think of, and I know the score of every championship game played in conference championship history, but that doesn't mean they're coming to mind right this second in terms of when has the committee punished a team that would have made the playoffs for losing a conference championship game. Nothing's coming to mind. All the Big Ten winners, yeah, I'm not going to go through. I'm not putting this together. Anyway, all right, let's keep it rolling. Defiant, what's going on?
Nothing much, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
Yeah, I mean, today I was very happy with the big win against Ohio State. I mean, there's nothing that could top this right now. National championship is probably what could top this, but right now, in this moment, this is the culmination of being an IU fan. But I will say this, though, about Kirsten Netty. I do like his coaching style. I do think sometimes he's a little bit too conservative and some of his play calling in certain situations. I know earlier before halftime, there was a couple of weeks that got the big stop, and he really did call his 2 timeouts to try to preserve some clock, maybe try to get a field goal range and make it a 1-point game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have an issue with that because we did stop him and everything like that, but I feel like sometimes he's a little bit too conservative, which I think is fine in certain situations. But when you're trying to, at least get some points before the half, I think you would need to call those 2 timeouts there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd have to go through the play-by-play and see how much time. So they stop Ohio State, and they've got how much time?
I think it's under a minute. I could be wrong. I know it was kind of getting closer to the half.
And they got the ball where?
I think it was around like midfield. I can't remember exactly. I think it was around somewhere around midfield.
We'll see it here in just a second.
And I know they had 2 timeouts remaining, and I think by the time they got the ball back, it was like 20 to 30 seconds left.
All right. So at the end of the first half, yes, they got the ball back with, is this right? 25 seconds left. So they didn't call timeouts when Ohio State had the ball?
Yeah, as they were, it was getting like 3rd down, and they stopped on the 4th down.
Yeah. So Ohio State got the ball with 2:22 left in the first half, and they completed a pass for a first down. Then they had a 4-yard run, and then Indiana started to stop them. They got a sack, then an incompletion. So that stopped the clock with 32 seconds. So after the sack, so they get a sack. So this is where I think you're at. They get a sack. It was only a 2-yard sack. That pushes them to 2nd and 6. So they've got, Ohio State's got a 2nd and 6 at their own 40. I guess with that offense, he's thinking it's not 2nd and 16, it's 2nd and 6, and they are at midfield. That he'd rather get to the half than give them more time. Then it's incomplete. So that's where most of the time was wasted, because then at 3rd and 8, they go incomplete and there's 32 seconds left. But Ohio State has to punt with 32 seconds left. So Indiana gets the ball with 25 seconds. Indiana gets the ball with 25 seconds at their own 15. So do you really want to try to move down the field in 25 seconds at your own 15?
I was just looking at it that Ohio State will get the ball heading into the second half. That's how I was looking at it.
Yep.
Try to at least get some momentum, just in case they did score on their opening drive, or they stopped them on their opening drive. Again, I have really nothing else to say about Kirk Cincinnati. I love his coaching. I think his coaching is great, but I think sometimes certain scenarios he might be a little bit too conservative. And again, I doesn't really enjoy his coaching style and everything. Really have no complaints about that. But that was kind of like my one kind of takeaway from the game today.
I got you.
And then I have another question too. When comparing Ohio State and Georgia, is there really an order that they would really go in? Does it really matter if one is 2 and one is 3?
No, it just matters what uniforms they're going to wear. Isn't there a choice given to the team in terms of the? Yeah, I think we've got a site situation. Like Georgia's going to be, as the SEC champion, playing in the Sugar Bowl. I don't know if they're going to be playing. That's a great question. Is Georgia automatically going to be playing in the Sugar Bowl as the SEC champion, even if they're the 3 seed? Or is the 2 seed going to get the choice of, even if they're non-conference champion, of playing where they want? I can't answer that.
I think they picked last year. I think they gave him the choices where they were ranked at.
Based on where they're ranked?
I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that process. I can't remember how they decided that last year.
I just know when they set this up, they were going to try to stay as close to the Big Ten champion going to the Rose and the SEC champion to the Sugar.
I can look this up really quickly to see if they have a.
Because if they're sticking to the conference champions going to the traditional site, then that's not going to matter. It's only going to matter what jerseys they wear. But
yeah, I think because of Boise State being the 4 seed, I think they just gave them the Fiesta Bowl because it's closer, to their fan base and everything. I'm trying to see. CP site selection work. Yeah, so they it says it prioritizes easier travel for the earlier seeds. I'm trying to see. Only thing it says is the committee considers geographical proximity when deciding the matchups and everything, and where they all fall.
So I was hearing comments made tonight about Georgia playing in the Sugar Bowl just because that's the traditional SEC site. But if the Peach Bowl is available in Atlanta, I would think that Georgia would want to play there.
Yeah, of course. So again, I don't know really how that's going to factor into who's 2 and who's 3. If Ohio State really cares about one or the other more over Georgia.
Well, I would think that the committee is going to rank Georgia 2
Mm-hmm.
and Ohio State 3. And therefore, based on the criteria you just read, then Georgia's going to have their selection to make.
Yeah, which will probably be the Peach Bowl. Just
Yeah.
And then Texas Tech will get the Fiesta Bowl because it's a lot closer. I believe that's the 4th bowl. I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, that's how it played. That's how it played out last year with Boise State being the 4th seed.
Yep.
You guys got to play the Fiesta Bowl. And I was going to ask you this question as well, Mark. I talked to Matthew yesterday on the show yesterday about if Indiana did lose, where would they fall? They would fall behind Oregon. With Indiana winning and Ohio State winning, does Oregon still stay at 5, or do you see maybe Ole Miss jumping them?
Why would those two teams be affected by anything that happened this weekend?
I don't think they would be affected by it.
Yeah.
Per se, because they
I don't
lose.
think so either.
Their losses were to the top 2 teams in the whole country. So I don't think they really would change that much.
Yeah, Oregon.
Indiana went on the road and beat them. So I don't really think those 2 teams would really be affected by all of the chaos. But again, I was talking to Matthew about if Indiana would lose, if Oregon would even jump into top 4, which wouldn't make any sense at all.
No.
But the committee has done ridiculous stuff this season with how
if Indiana would have lost 45-0. But yeah, I think it looks pretty clear cut. We're going to have Indiana 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3. Yeah, I would still think Ohio State would be number 3 and Texas Tech 4. Like the top 8 shouldn't change just in order. And then we've got all the decisions to make after that.
Yeah, and 2 of those spots are going to be Tulane and JMU.
Yes,
for the most part, and that's going to be the interesting part because those 2 teams should be 11 and 12. There should be no case for them jumping up on
Tulane 11.
And I saw a lot of
James
and I was
Madison
want to
12.
say to my last point would be I saw a lot of people talking about if Virginia won that Tulane to still jump them as being the 11th seed, which I don't. How can that even be a possibility for Tulane jumping Virginia? Because are they going based off the Ole Miss loss? But you can also make the case that they lost to UTSA by double digits as well.
I'm guessing that they were making that claim because Tulane was playing a North Texas team that was ranked in the committee's top 25 and Virginia was not.
Yeah. But I just thought that was kind of really nonsense.
Yeah, this seems rather cut and dry. We're looking at the top 8 staying the same, just in a different order slightly. And then 11 and 12 are the 2 group of 5s, Tulane and North Texas, or James Madison in that order. And we're sitting at 9 and 10. And is Alabama going to get punished for losing the SEC championship game by 3 touchdowns?
Yeah. And
otherwise, BYU and Miami stay where they're at, and maybe BYU drops. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah, because then you can make the argument of, dropping BYU and everything. They lost their conference championship. So I guess I'm going to not only make the argument that BYU should be in, but if you punish BYU a little bit, I feel like you do have to punish Alabama slightly.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's a very similar situation. They both got beaten badly, almost to the same degree. One to number 3, one to number 4. They're almost identical losses, about as close as you could compare.
Yeah, and I know BYU really did not play a tough schedule at all besides Texas Tech, and those are their only 2 losses. But again, those 2 losses were pretty good. Same thing with Alabama losing to Georgia.
Yeah.
So,
well,
you
if
do have to.
I don't know at what point you jumped on, but this is all null and void now. But I was just making the case that if BYU would have played a close Big 12 championship, that I didn't understand this mentality that Texas Tech could lose the Big 12 championship game and remain in the playoff, and BYU could lose a close Big 12 championship and be knocked out of the playoff. Made no sense to me because BYU's got a better string of wins than Texas Tech does. But that's all null and void, so it's not worth discussing.
No, I definitely agree. I will say one more thing about the point you just made. I think it's going based off the rankings.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are just thinking Texas Tech's at 4. How could they possibly drop to 11? And BYU's 11. How can a team go up the rankings if they lose?
Yeah. So it's looking nice for the first 1 to 8, but then 9 and 10 is going to come down to a lot of different factors that I am not capable of saying, oh, well, this team should be in or this team should not be in. And that's why supposedly we have a committee that's going to make this all right.
Yes. Well, we've got Miami beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Miami have almost exact strength of schedules and a slew of common opponents that they both wiped out. Alabama's got better wins than both of them by far, but they also have an additional loss. And they've got an ugly loss early in the season to Florida State, and they have the most recent ugly loss, albeit to the number 3 team in the country. So there's a lot to sort out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I will be watching it tomorrow to see, again, who gets that 9 and 10 spot, because those teams you mentioned right there all have their flaws, but also have a lot of things going for them as well.
Yep.
And I think that's all I have, Mark.
Right, Defiant. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. We will keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. And just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Yeah, this punishing teams that have bad losses on championship weekend. Nothing is coming to mind. Nothing is coming to mind where a team would have made the playoff, even in the 4-team playoff, but they lost badly on championship weekend and got punished for that. Yeah, I'll have to think a little bit more about that. I'm not coming up with anyone. The real MVP, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, I got some possible examples about that. The first one is the 2014 Wisconsin Badgers team. I believe they would have made the...
I'm sorry. Keep going.
They would have made the playoffs, but since they lost 59-0, Ohio State jumped them.
What playoff would they have made? They were not going to make the playoff. No.
They weren't going to make the 4-team? Okay. No, and the other one I know...
They were number 13 in the country.
Okay. No. The 2023 Georgia Bulldogs were number 1 in the country at 12-0, and they lost and dropped all the way to number 6.
Okay. I took this comment as like bad losses, like meaning to me that's not a bad loss. They lost to the number 4 or 5 team in the country by a field goal? What was
they lost to the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah. Like I was looking for examples like Alabama today, and I'm not finding them. That's what I thought this comment was pertaining to.
Well, Mark, I'm going to dissect the playoff because
Okay.
in 2023, I do what everybody tells me to do on the internet. It's all rigged, ESPN bias, SEC bias. So you know what I did? I turned it on ESPN. Heather Dinich appeared on ESPN, and what did she basically say? Everybody's talking about Notre Dame, Miami. That's not what the committee's focusing on. It's Alabama, Notre Dame. That's what the committee's focusing on. She thinks they're gonna flop Alabama and Notre Dame next week. Alabama will be number 10. Notre Dame will be number 9. Miami will stay exactly where they're at. That's what she believes is going to happen next week. Now, everybody's been telling me this whole thing, SEC bias, it's all rigged. ESPN has all the cards. They know what's happening. So according to Heather Dinich, who works for ESPN, Alabama's in the college football playoff. So if it's good enough for her, it's good enough for me. I believe Alabama is a lock to make the college football playoff. I believe Notre Dame will make the college football playoff. Notre Dame should not make the college football playoff, but I believe they will make the college football playoff. And again, this 12-team playoff has completely blown up the sanctity of the regular season. But this is what you all wanted, and this is what you all have gotten, to the point where you can have teams with the same record. Team A beats Team B. But we think Team B is better, so therefore they're going to get in. Now, they probably will lose to Oklahoma, because Oklahoma has better results than Notre Dame at the absolute top. And then I can't wait for the coping and seething of how Notre Dame's still a better football team than Miami after they lose to Oklahoma.
Yeah, so for me, looking at Miami and Notre Dame, if there's a sudden and how they would spin it, I have no idea. But Miami jumps Notre Dame, I'm going to be in complete favor of that for the same reason you are, the most obvious and common sense that Miami won the game. But I don't know how they're going to justify or spin that in any such way when I'm staring at Notre Dame at number 10 and Miami at 12, and their resumes barely changed at all in any meaningful way. Of course, they didn't play. So I don't know how that would possibly happen.
Yeah, the amount of people who want Alabama out this week, like, do they understand the destruction of the entire sport that would happen if you leave the number 1 SEC team out of the college football playoff because they lost to the number 2 team in the country by 3 touchdowns? Like, I hope people understand what we're talking about is like permanent fracturing, to where honestly the SEC might leave the sport. It's been floated out there by Greg Sankey before. Listen, I'm going to be a little elitist here, Mark. 1 week, this entire college football season, has any other conference other than the SEC been the most watched game of the week? And that was Michigan, Ohio State. Without the SEC, college football is a much, much, much smaller sport than what it is.
Sure.
And what you're all saying is for them to pound sand because you all don't like the Alabama Crimson Tide and their dominance. After they have the best win in the country, their second win is elite, their third win's really good, their fourth win is really good. Much better than anything Notre Dame, Miami, BYU have. And it's all because you all don't like them. Alabama, I know it's crazy, Mark, but from a pure talent perspective, from what they still can win it all. Like, it wouldn't shock me if it were to hang in January, they're playing Ohio State and they beat Ohio State to win the national championship. Because nobody at the absolute top is really elite this year, like in years past.
People are they are just a prisoner of the moment too. I just think I don't know how many of these phone calls you've heard, but we ran through a stretch of them where I'm just fielding comments about games that don't matter that were played, like all that matters, and then I'll play along with that. If we want to play that game, I will play along with that, but then I'm going to find a number of either valid or ridiculous examples to throw in somebody's face to say, if you truly want to be consistent and you're only looking at the most recent performance, then Texas should be a shoe-in. They just beat Texas A&M, an 11-0 football team. So Texas, we shouldn't even think about it. They're in the playoff. And if you're going to throw these results away from 4 and 5 and 6 weeks ago, well, Texas never lost to Florida. Get rid of that. Let's just be consistent. I think there's a way to do this, and I don't agree with that way. But if we're going to play that game, I can go along and play that game as well. Yes,
Mark,
Alabama's a better resume than Notre Dame and Miami.
Right. Mark, all these people, I don't think, are honest actors. I think a majority of them just want to see Alabama in particular and the SEC at large completely fail. It was similar to me. I'm going to make an odd comparison. They had a bunch of flat earthers last year who honestly believed the earth was flat. They flew them to Antarctica so that way they could see the sun stay up for 24 hours. That way they can disprove that the earth was not flat and was on a globe. Okay? That's the level of like factual basis we need for these people to prove it. None of these people who just want Alabama below Notre Dame and Miami will do anything, any result, unless the SEC wins every game, will be enough for them. They'll point out that one little flaw in every team's resume, and every team has a flaw, and even Indiana has a flaw in their resume. I mean, they only beat a 6-6 Penn State team by 3 points, Mark. I mean, they're not very good. I watched them play Penn State. They're not that good. Anybody can use any data point and any one singular statistic and point it out to make a flaw. Like your Ohio State Buckeyes, Mark. They're 0-1 against playoff teams. Why should they be in the playoff? They've only played 2 teams this year in the top 15. They've won the combined point margin difference is +4. They've barely scraped by. They play a bunch of cupcakes and cream cakes and beat them by 40. They rested their best 2 wide receivers for the Michigan game in order to rest them up because they knew they can do that because of how bad their conference is at the bottom. See, anybody can craft any narrative to support their conclusion that they've already drawn up instead of just looking at the results of the schedule and realizing, well, not every team is going to have some weakness in it. And Ohio State, by the way, clearly belongs in the playoffs as one of the 4 best teams. Unfortunately, I want to move to something else, Mark, and that is the absolute disaster that this bracket is going to produce. I'm not sure if you've played out the bracket at all.
No.
We are going to get some horrendous matchups.
Okay.
James Madison's going to play Oregon. James Madison has the 123rd strength of schedule. They remind me a lot of that Liberty team from a few years ago that had absolutely no chance of playing Oregon and got mollywalked.
Yes.
Mark, or Tulane's going to play Ole Miss because we need to see that game again. Tulane is going to play Ole Miss. I wonder what would happen if Tulane played Ole Miss. I mean, I feel like Ole Miss might win by 35 points. That number is sticking out in my head. That they might win by 35 points.
Sounds like a good guess. I like that prediction.
Yeah. If they don't flip Alabama and Notre Dame for whatever reason, we would have Notre Dame rematch Texas A&M in a 10-7 game. And Alabama rematch Oklahoma if they do not flip them. So we could potentially have 3 rematches in the first round of the college football playoff, Mark.
Wow. Yeah, that's just not very interesting.
But we need to expand this thing to 24. That way we get more teams a shot. We need to expand this to 24 teams.
And really, other than that Alabama Notre Dame portion of that, the rest of that, unless they artificially, and they're going to have to come up with some kind of crazy reason, they really can't move those other teams. Nobody's playing. They're there. That's where they should stay.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be, if they almost have to flip Notre Dame and Alabama alone for like interest in the first round. Yeah. That way Notre Dame can go to Oklahoma and we'll see like this ugly 17-14 football game, and Alabama will play Texas A&M in the Battle of the Frauds. But no matter what, this playoff bracket's really exposed is 50% of the games in the first round, that being Tulane and James Madison, right now absolutely have no chance of winning. Like, I can almost guarantee you they will lose by 24 plus. And we're what, a month out from those games actually being played, or a few weeks? Like, the NFL is competing directly with these games. It's going to be like when Penn State played SMU. People will turn it on. There'll be 21-0, 7 minutes in the first quarter, and people will flip it off. I mean, that's why I'm not upset that Virginia lost to Duke. I mean, it's what sheep is going to be sent to the slaughterhouse is what happened tonight. Instead of it being Virginia, it's going to be James Madison. So instead of the final score going to be like 35-10, it's going to be 55-10. I mean, it really doesn't matter. So, Mark, I want to introduce this concept to you now.
Okay.
That the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, the best dynasty maybe in the history of the NFL had.
Yes.
When they didn't get the bye, they had this thing that Nick Wright coined specifically on FS1. It's a great saying. It's called better than a bye. You get all the advantages of playing the game. You get to like test out your plays of new formations. You don't have to deal with the rest and like the withdrawal of it. You get to get hyped up for the game, but you get none of the downside of actually being worried about losing the game at all. So you get the absolute best of both worlds.
So is he proposing this, or is this basically week 17 in the NFL?
It's basically, well, he called it for the wild card game when the Chiefs played the Steelers, when the Steelers' final year with Ben Roethlisberger, and they were just absolutely terrible.
Game. Yes.
Yeah. And they had no chance. That's what it is for Ole Miss and Oregon. They have no chance of losing those games. So, you know, they're going to go out, get loose, throw, get some confidence before they face a big boy. And they get to have fun, maybe throw some new formations in there. That way on tape, they can throw out their next week's opponents and all that stuff. But they get none of the downside of actually having a threat to lose the football game at all. So they get the best of both worlds.
Well, especially Oregon. I can see Tulane possibly giving Ole Miss some semblance of a game.
Maybe. I mean, I would more likely believe you if I didn't see the first time and just see how absolutely devastating. Not even Ole Miss's offense, but their defense was. I mean, Tulane only scored 7 points that game, if I recall correctly. I mean, they don't belong in this playoff. And hopefully, after this year, we go to I can't believe I'm going to say this, but this is going to unfortunately happen. We're going to go to a 16-team model. The entire G5 is eliminated. They got to do their own little thing. And it's going to be all P4 teams. That way, your BYU, Miami, Texas, Vanderbilt, and USC, that being the oddball as the 16 seed. You know, you just need a clunker for the 1 seed. All get in there. They play an equal number of games. You have your first and second round game in there. And then, boom, you're good to go.
This 16-team playoff with only the big boys playing would actually be, you know, there's some entertainment there. You know, Indiana plays USC in the first round. Georgia, Utah, Ohio State, Vandy, Texas Tech, Texas. Then what do we got? A 5-12 with Oregon and Miami, Ole Miss, BYU, and obviously there might be a little change because of what happened this past weekend. But just for an example, Ole Miss and BYU, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and the 8-9 Oklahoma, Alabama that we've already seen. But I'm in on some of those games. Miami and Oregon.
Yeah, it's better because we're not artificially inflating these absolute crap group of 5 teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything you don't already know. Yes, the worst team in the field is, I don't know, USC or Utah, whoever. They can still play. They have talent.
Right, and it's fair for those two to be the worst teams because they got to go against the best teams. So it equals out the incentives for being the 1 and 2 seed. Whereas in this tournament bracket, the difference between the 6 seed and the 7 seed is ginormous. There's like I'm going to guess that there's like a 20-point advantage between being the number 6 team and the number 7 team. Because if you're 7, you're probably playing Alabama. And if you're 6, you're playing Tulane.
Yeah.
In what scheduling model does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and think of this. When we were talking, and I say we, meaning literally you and I and whomever else would call, but we had our share of conversations, projecting what this was going to look like. We immediately went to that 5 seed. We immediately went to that is the place to be the 5 seed and be in the SEC most likely, or the Big Ten, be the 5 seed, and you're going to get that 12, because we weren't even calculating that a power conference was going to get left out of this, a power conference champion, and then we would have 2 lousy teams being elevated, 30 spots into this field. So now we've got even the 6 seed benefiting from this.
Right. And I've seen a lot of people, they've mentioned it even on the broadcast during the ACC championship game, talking about how these conferences need to fix their tiebreakers. And I don't know how they would do it unless they do the one thing I think we hate the most, which is just say your highest ranked college football playoff team is in the ACC championship game or whatever championship game is. Because there's always, like, if you use margin of victory or point, some point differential or something like that, that's still going to lead it to where if you have a tougher schedule, you're less likely to win by a larger margin than if you have a weaker schedule. So I don't see how they could adjust their tiebreakers other than the highest ranked college football playoff team going forward in order to fix this Duke situation.
Yes. I don't know if you heard Minnesota Dave, who he suggested the BCS rankings, which, since we're looking at metrics, we're looking at computers, I would tend to go that route over the committee in their rankings.
Okay, is there, I don't know, but I doubt there's any tangible difference between the BCS rankings and the committee rankings.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
Probably not much.
You don't have a problem with it being fully taken out of the conference's hand. Because I know that was a sticking point with you in the past, was why
It
should
has-
the committee...
Go ahead.
Why should...
Yeah, it's been a sticking point just based on principle of, number one, we've got a college football playoff committee that I don't believe in. Not that those individuals are doing a horrendous job. They've done a fairly reasonable job during a 4-team era. Last season's selections were okay. This season, it's more about the transparency of the decision making and the week to week maneuvering of the rankings than the final result. I have no great qualms with what the committee has been able to do since 2014 in a 4-team playoff, or last season, and we'll see about tomorrow. So, but I don't believe that that's what should be done objectively to select playoff teams. So I've always been opposed to a committee. So that's why I, in principle, would not want a conference, nor should I. Do I think I'm just envisioning me running a conference and giving up the autonomy and sovereignty of my conference to some committee. That I would think that the conference would be able to come up with a better way to determine a tiebreaker system. But that's easier said than done, and the conferences have become so large that you're comparing teams again that did not play during the season. So until further notice, yeah, I guess I would give it up to the BCS rankings, not necessarily the committee, although they could be the same.
Okay, and I wanted to point this out because I thought it was interesting. With James Madison now officially making it, 25% of the college football playoffs will not have their head coaches coach for them next season, entering the playoff.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think anyone envisioned that a couple of years ago when this 12-team playoff was first approved.
So, do you think there should be a universal rule to where you have to leave if you take another job? Because I don't think it's fair to do it on a case by case basis. I think there should be some rule that way everyone's operating the same.
So, for as much as I would like, since we live in a free country, for these situations to be dealt with individually, they are part of a commonality. They are part of a structure where there needs to be cooperation and equal competition. So I think this has to be part of a greater restructuring of the sport and its calendar, with the transfer portal, with the recruiting cycles, with when coaches can be hired and fired. And that's a tricky one, but I do think that there are ways to suspend movement of coaches until the end of the season. That's the way I would like that to be dealt with.
Now, I know this is a little too maybe a little too technical in the weeds and maybe more of an off-season discussion, but I'm not sure if you saw the SCORE Act that they were trying to push through Congress got pulled. So it doesn't seem like they're going to pass any legislation around that.
Yeah.
Do you think they should sign an executive order, or the NCAA should come out with guidelines saying this is what we're going to do? Like, how would you be able to enforce anything that you put down?
Yeah, I'm not saying that this is easy because, of course, these schools can fire these coaches whenever they want. And I don't know if that's enforceable. I don't know if that's legal to say we are going to build a structure in which you have to hang on to this coach until the end of the season. Or if you do fire said coach in week 4, that you cannot hire another coach until, and we're talking about generally, poor performing teams. So their season's over, let's say the last Saturday of November, and they're waiting until January 20th until they can see. I keep hearing that proposed, but I don't know if it's been vetted by anyone to determine, is this really feasible to do that? It's nice in theory to say we're going to suspend all hiring until everyone's done with their season. But then there's going to be this, even if that could be accomplished, there's going to be a mad rush of hirings and firings on January 20th, the day after the national championship game. And spring practice starts in late February or early March. And there's a recruiting, the recruiting is going to have to pretty much be shut down in terms of signing day in December. And it's going to have to go back to its previous date, the first week of February, because we're going to have way too many incidents. Because obviously every time there's a coach taken from somewhere or there's a job vacancy, it creates another one because somebody leaves that another job to take that job unless they come from the NFL. So the job openings are almost exponentially, become more numerous. and so we could have 15 to 20 schools out there minimum that have recruiting situations in mid-December where players are looking at schools and they don't know who the head coach is. And then, of course, the head coach is going to want to bring in a new coaching staff. So said player doesn't even know who their position coaches could be.
Right. I think there's a few things we can do to mitigate this.
Yeah.
I think we need to start the season on August 34th first. I think week 0 just needs to be the official start of the season. I mean, it's already pushing that way anyway with more and more games being played on week 0.
Okay.
Just start there. Eliminate conference championship games. They're dumb. They're pointless. They don't determine anything. 2 of them are completely irrelevant, guaranteed going forward anyway, in the SEC, ACC, SEC, and Big Ten. Third thing is the Army-Navy game. You get to have that game, but that's the start of the playoffs that week. We shouldn't have an entire week centered around one college football game, and everyone else is just kind of waiting and being idle. I understand it's an important game and all that stuff, but I mean, no other sport has one game in the middle of the regular season be all end all to where it stops the entire world for a week. I mean,
yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. And this is the reason. I do love tradition, but beyond tradition, there is a break for the players and coaches in the middle of recruiting. All that's going on as well. So we've got coaching staffs that are trying to pull in a recruiting class at the same time that they're preparing teams for playoff games, that there's some, after a long, this is football. It's not a long season compared to a baseball or basketball season, but it's a long season in terms of, physical challenges. And right after, regular season, diving right into the playoffs the next week, I like that weekend of Army, Navy, Heisman Trophy, award shows. It's just a nice buffer to build up hype going into the playoffs. I think it's good for the sport.
Yeah, I maybe it's because of like generation gaps or something. To me, it's just complete dead period. Everyone's focusing on other things. I'm sorry, this isn't like the 1980s or 70s or 60s. We got to move things along, man. Like, to me, when you're saying that, all you're saying is we're going to kill the momentum of the sport while we're in stride. That's all I'm hearing. Like, have the award show. First off, don't make it an hour long. Make it 30 minutes long, or even it could even be 15 minutes. We don't need to hear about everyone's backstory from their childhood all the way to the point they got for like 5 different people, only for the final 2 minutes to actually matter. Okay, we don't need to do that.
We're starting to get into territory. We're starting to get into territory that doesn't need to be regulated in any way. TV networks can do whatever they want. If they want to talk about the Heisman Trophy for 18 consecutive hours, they can do it.
I understand. It's just my personal gripe with it. But the thing I'm trying to say is we need to think this sport to be a continuous thing and keep its pace and momentum up. And just having a break because of other extreme factors like the Heisman Trophy. The NFL doesn't have a week off. That way they can declare their NFL MVP between week 18 and their start of their playoffs.
I understand that, but I'm guessing that everyone in this chat can name multiple Heisman Trophy winners, and they would only be able to name NFL MVPs because it's pretty obvious that Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady have been NFL MVPs, just because that's pretty obvious. But nobody really pays too much attention to when the NFL MVP is announced. There's not a TV show. Maybe there is on the NFL Network. Who knows? But anyway, I just think from a prestige standpoint, there's no comparison. And I don't believe that college football has. Now, there was a moment in time not long ago when you would have rivalry weekend. You had no conference championship games. You had rivalry weekend on Thanksgiving weekend. And then you may have had another weekend in November, all of December, and you would have BCS championship games on like January 8th. I remember Ohio State and Florida. Well, Florida would play an SEC championship game. There was no Big Ten championship game. Ohio State sat for close to 58 days waiting for a championship game. You might as well have a completely different team, or not even, talking about killing momentum. That's an extreme. That's 2 months. In this situation, I do think that there's a nice build up and speculation and talk for these first round playoff games that's only 2 weeks long.
Yeah,
Rather than just by the time you play all these important games on Saturday, we're talking about it on Sunday, and then we got more games coming up on Friday, let's say, if we're going to dive right into it. That 2 weeks is a nice buildup to have a lot of talk about not just the first round matchups, but the expected, well, these couple are going to be blowouts. Therefore, Georgia's going to play Oregon in the next round, and whoever's going to play whoever. And let's talk about that. I don't see that as being too long or too much of a drag. I think it's a nice buildup. I think it's a nice common ground of buildup, but also getting onto it pretty quickly.
Well, that's fine. I think this year as well, maybe it's just for me. This is the first year where I feel like conference championship games are also part of that drag.
Yeah.
Like
I
this
got
is the least caring I've cared about any conference championship game. Like
Yeah,
if you told me 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't care about number one playing number two in a conference championship game. I would have called you delusional. I watched legit 5 plays of that Ohio State and Indiana game because it didn't matter who won the game, who lost the game. I know that Ohio State caller was upset about the game. And my whole thing is, why do you care, man? It doesn't matter. The game literally didn't matter for either team.
Yeah.
Now, I'm happy Indiana won something, but
sure.
Who cares?
Well, yeah, I have mixed thoughts and feelings about that because I'm still tied in many ways to traditions and what I grew up with, or I didn't even grow up with conference championship games, so I'm that old. But I enjoyed the last. Now, I didn't sit there and watch Duke and Virginia. It was on a second screen. I had it on during the Big Ten championship game, and I tried to watch 2 games, but I could only really focus on it after the Big Ten was over. And I got into the moment, and I enjoyed that for Duke, even though to 99% of the people listening to my voice and beyond, you think that doesn't matter. Duke won the ACC. Nobody cares. You didn't make the playoff, so it doesn't count. I like it. I think it's fun. It's competitive football. It was a great game. It was a great finish and all those things. Ohio State and Indiana, there were a good 5 to 8 moments in the second half where I dozed off and missed a play. Like, I didn't doze off and take a 45-minute nap, but I dozed off on the couch and then woke up. I was like, oh, it's 3rd and 4? Thought it was first down. Okay, I missed 2 plays. So that happened to me several times. So for all the people that like to chime in when Ohio State loses a game like that I'm like devastated or that just upset me beyond belief. No, I was dozing off in the second half. Did I want Ohio State to win the game? Well, I want Ohio State to win every game just to say, hey, they're undefeated and nobody can beat them. But I knew that they were going to lose a game at some point. Would I rather have them lose the Big Ten championship game or lose a month from now? Well, the Big Ten championship game. So I didn't care that much. I made the statement on a show, on the Ohio State show this week, that the reason I care about the Big Ten championship game is because sometime in May or June, I'm going to be making tallies about the number of Big Ten championships all time. And I would rather be able to click another one next to Ohio State. But in terms of like sitting there watching the game and they won the Big Ten championship, it just doesn't mean what it used to.
Right. And this is part of why this 12-team playoff really gets to me and like the preciousness of having a 2 or 4-team playoff. It's particularly 2. That 27-yard field goal. If he missed it and we were in a 2-team playoff where just 2 teams make it, that probably would have been the difference between Ohio State winning the national championship and them not even making the title game. It would have been this whole big thing about, man, this one kick, how did this kicker blow it? Ryan Day from, just think about it, with the 12-team playoff, it basically could save his butt in back-to-back years and him arguably being the greatest coach in Ohio State history, to he's probably fired after this game. if they didn't have the 12-team playoff. Like,
Yeah.
that's the level of difference.
Sure. Yeah, he might not have been around after last year because they would have been going to the Citrus Bowl or something, and they just lost to Michigan. So am I hearing this straight? You don't even want a 4-team playoff.
I want the +1 model. That's what I've always
Okay.
advocated for,
Yeah.
is the +1 model. I know we're not going to get it. I think what we should do is recognize not everyone can win the national championship in college football. There's only like 8 programs at most who can ever win the national championship, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think the idea that winning the national championship in this sport is honestly what's killing it, because people are going to understand, like Utah fans and Arizona State fans, Arizona fans that have nice seasons, you're just getting crap now. So I'd like to go back to the old system where if you win the Citrus Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, that made my season. That made my year. Like, I liked winning the Citrus Bowl in 2018. That's probably the highlight of my fandom. I remember that game. I remember Trace McSorley, James Franklin making a horrendous call and kicking a field goal and not going for it on 4th and 2. Not everything in every sport has to be about winning the national championship, but we've decided you got to win it all. So
Okay,
it is what it is.
So if we peel it back to 2 or 4 teams or the +1, anything that's just an elite status that you have to reach. Yeah, okay. You're taking that back to most fan bases know we can't reach that level. Therefore, we're happy going to the Outback Bowl and winning and going 10-3 or 9-4, or we have a chance to be elite, but we can't do it on a regular basis. So aside from those really special seasons, and I don't even know what programs those would be, maybe Penn State. Yeah, we're okay with going to the Citrus Bowl and winning.
Right.
And that used to be okay. Yeah.
Like 2020 Cincinnati. They would have won to a major bowl game instead. What are they known for? They got crushed by Alabama in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Same thing. What's TCU known for? Even though they won a playoff game, they lost by 58 to Georgia. That's what they're known for. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of warped our perception of expectations. And this year, I mean, Indiana and Georgia, to me, are by far the best 2 teams in the country throughout the entire course of the season.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State has an argument. I just don't think they've proven it over the course of the schedule because of how weak their schedule is overall. Because the only 2 decent teams they've played is Indiana and Texas. And I have not been impressed with Julian Sain in particular in either one of those games. So I do think a product of Ohio State's elite offense is how weak their schedule is. So I personally wouldn't. I would be happy if Indiana played Georgia in the national championship game next week, and everyone else just played in a big time bowl game. Now, or if you wanted a 4-team playoff, who would be upset if it was Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas Tech? I think a lot of this filler is just for drama and attention and clicks and all that stuff.
Well, sure.
It's like basically we've made the sport into First Take is what we've done.
Well, I think it just comes down to money every time I'm asked, and I'm not the only one. Why do we have to have so many teams in the playoffs? It's the secondary answer is, well, for games and to see if the 12th best team in the country, or who we thought was the 12th best team in the country, could win the national championship. But it's more just more games equals more money. So it's never going to go in reverse. So we're just talking fantasy land because it's not going in reverse. It's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, I know. And listen, Indiana, I think, has a legit case. Any team, like what he's done in Kirk Cincinnati is just 1 in a billion type thing of what he's done this year. I do, and as I said before, and why I thought Indiana was going to win this game is because I think they legit were trying their absolute best to win this game, because for Indiana, this is their Super Bowl. Whereas I think there is a psychological thing for Ohio State. They know that they're going to be playing at least the semifinals because they're Ohio State, to where I think they were saving a bunch of their stuff. Like, that's why I don't think they went for it on the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. I think they're just trying different things out in that situation. Hey, what happened if we're in a close game against Oklahoma, for example, and we got to run this type, and we're in a close game? Can we do this and get away with it? Oh, well, here's the adjustments we got to make. I think that's what they're doing, is just fine-tuning and against elite team. Basically, it's a glorified scrimmage. That's the way I view it.
Yeah, I don't think it's being viewed like that by them. I think that they truly want to win a Big Ten championship. But again, season was the first of many, whether it's going to be Ohio State or Georgia or whoever, that are going to not win conference championships, not beat their rival, not do a lot of things that we associated with elite status in the past that you needed to accomplish, and still get to the playoff, just get in and then win the national championship. So I'm not discounting anything that you just said.
Right. I'm getting some pushback.
But I don't think Ohio State, I don't think they played like that. I couldn't watch that game and say that they played any less hard than Indiana. Now, whether there were decisions being made.
Right.
Like
That's
that,
what I was getting at. I
Sure.
think the coaches are making decisions that they normally wouldn't make to try different things out. That way, if they were in a close game, they could see if there are things, you don't know how your players are going to react in different situations. And if you're in a close game, and Ohio State has been in so few close games this season, they thought they would try things differently. And unfortunately for them, it didn't work. That's why I thought they threw it on that 3rd and 1 play to Jeremiah Smith, just to see if Julian Sain can make that elite level throw against one of the best defenses in the country. That's what I think happened. I don't think it's some grand conspiracy theory where the players weren't trying, or they were trying to rest their, in order not to get hurt or anything. I think they were going all out. So it's a similar thing to the NFL in Week 18, where the players out there are absolutely trying their best, but they're doing vanilla stuff, even if their starters aren't even are in the game at all. That's what it's like. And I know it's a horrible mindset we have to have as college football fans, but we expanded the playoff to 12, and this is what's going to happen going forward. So, but anyway, Mark, that's all I got for you. I guess final thing I'll leave on is 84% of your chat was wrong, Mark. There's going to be 5 SEC teams in the college football playoff. And I just want that to marinate. 5 teams are going to be in from one conference.
There it is. Thanks to Real. Yeah, and if a non-conference champion does win the national championship again this year, of course, Ohio State would be the most likely candidate, but you would also have Oregon as a possibility. You would also have Miami if they make it, but Ohio State would be the most likely, and then Oregon, and then whoever from the SEC that you think could be a threat. I don't know that a lot of people, including myself, think Texas A&M or Oklahoma are good enough to make it that deep, but we could have, a slew of non-conference champions going forward in this 12-team playoff eventually win the national championship. Therefore, they're either not playing this weekend, or, as was the case last year, or they're playing a game and losing what used to be just monumental games, these conference championship games, but losing, but still, hey, we're okay. Ohio State's going to be the 3 seed, not the 1 seed. And again, when we count Big Ten championships, they're going to have 1 less than they would have. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football.
Hey, good evening, Mark. I'm still awake with you, although I was ruminating with your
Good
falling
Lord,
asleep
it's
on the couch.
3:23. When did I start this deal? Yeah, I guess we're going to go Guess we're going to go one more hour if I'm counting correctly.
Well, hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, I've enjoyed listening to everybody, and I guess my first compliment would be to I'm obviously a Michigan guy, but I enjoyed the Indiana Ohio State game tonight. Very competitive, very familiar score. But congratulations to the Indiana guys when they were
Sure.
showing that they hadn't won since 1988, since the last time they beat OSU,
Yes.
and was there a conference title in the 40s, 50s? I lost track. My memory is erased.
1967 was the last one shared. 45 was the last outright.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So that's congratulations to them, and it's their day, it's their moment, and this is a meaningful moment for them. So I'm of your nature that I believe in the tradition and I believe in the value of, hey, a Big Ten championship, a conference championship, that means a lot. It means there are a lot of us who grew up in the days when the national championship is this mythical thing where it came out in the newspapers the next day. Nobody ever played each other.
Yep.
So you took satisfaction in your conference championship, and you took satisfaction in sending your rival down to play in a crappier bowl. That was life. And now we're slicing it and dicing it to get the old, maybe we're running into the better is the enemy of good enough. But I'm enjoying. I think I'm with you in terms of, I put out my little thesis earlier in the evening of, boy, I wish it was just conference champions going forward into the playoff. I understand your premise of, the money's involved now and we may never go back to that. But, I still think that is a way to provide value and to provide meaning to, and keep in the, what you and I grew up with, where that conference championship meant everything. And, the Mr. Manning there previously threw out the little scenario of when he goes, imagine what if Ohio State had lost to Michigan last year and didn't make the playoffs. A small part of me enjoyed that part of the conversation. Yeah, that's how we grew up. That made that game that much more important. Who was going on and who was going home.
Yeah.
And now that everyone's invited to the party and they're sitting home on their couches and going, oh boy, Alabama lost by 3. You should let us in now. That's just an argument, that I'm not prepared to have, and I may be getting a little older, and I think the guys that are playing this weekend, the teams that are playing, need to be rewarded because they're there. And if you're on the home, you're secondary, and whatever shakes out, that's it. And that's just my 2 cents there.
Yeah. Well, I think the 2023 Ohio State Michigan game was the last of its kind. So we had 2 11-0 teams, and Ohio State lost, and they missed the playoffs. And we will never see another of its kind like that.
It was beautiful, Mark. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it meant everything.
It meant everything.
So in the current structure of conferences, in that you just want the conference champions to play in a playoff, how would we? So we would just have the 4 conferences. So Duke, Georgia, Indiana, and Texas Tech would play for the national championship.
With the way we configured it this year, correct.
Okay.
I guess what I was I would do a few things, and we all have our own, what's the best way to skin this cat, but I'm almost to the point where it's like, I agree. I would want to reduce the number of games in a season and maybe have a little end of season conference tournament so that you have 4 teams that, let's say the Big Ten this year, you got Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, and who would have been number 4?
USC.
Let them go at it for, I guess that's 3 weekends. I'm sorry, I'm tired. Can't count.
What would the other teams do?
I'm saying the season's over. You reach kind of like your fantasy
Yeah.
football. You know, maybe you toss out some of your
You're
non-conference
losing money.
games.
That's not gonna fly because you're losing money.
Yeah, I guess my argument to that one would be is, I mean, you obviously watched last year's playoffs with a slight more interest than I did. But when I was watching the NFL playoffs
Yeah.
side by side with the college football playoffs, I didn't enjoy the college football playoffs. I mean, granted, if Michigan's there, I might have thought differently. But I'm just saying the quality of product. Generally, in the regular season, you're so excited for college football on Saturday that your mind has separated it from anything going on in the National Football League, because the National Football League doesn't matter until the playoffs start. And now that's what we're seeing in the college.
Whoa. It doesn't matter
It almost doesn't matter.
to who.
I'm saying that,
More people watch the NFL than watch anything.
well, we've increased the number of playoff teams substantially.
I understand that, but I'm talking about the regular season. Regular season NFL playoff game or regular season games outrank everything in college football, excluding like the championship game. So obviously the NFL still has, it's teams that are pursuing a 9-8 record to get a wild card. And even though that sounds mediocre and that you can lose all these games in the NFL, they've cornered the market in terms of popularity.
Oh, they have. I guess what I'm trying to say is that when I'm watching the college games,
Yeah.
especially when you're in the prior configurations, there was a lot more meaning in each and every game,
Oh,
each and every
absolutely.
week.
Yeah.
The NFL playoffs, it matters eventually to see who the best 9-8, what that group of 8, or what are we up to, 8, 10 teams each year in the NFL playoffs. It's a significant.
14, yeah, 7 per conference.
So what's that percentage of the overall number of teams?
14 out of 32. It's getting awfully close to 50%.
It's getting pretty big. So so college had more of a meaning, I thought, in the regular season. But now when I see the college playoffs side by side with the NFL playoffs, and the caliber of play is just so much, it's not comparable, and it's not supposed to be. But I'm just saying,
yeah.
But that's the
I'm just-
advantage. I'm just saying that's the advantage of college ending early, is you don't want to compete with that.
I'm understanding your point, but I'm not seeing it play out, meaning that you're giving credence to the same thing that a lot of people argue, and that's when the college games were they were more special. The regular season was more special because only the elite could play for a national championship. So the regular season was more special. That makes total sense. Now you can lose 2 games, maybe even 3 games. We'll see, but basically 2 games and still make the playoff. Therefore, it's not as special, and the regular season isn't as special. However, the NFL is able to maintain an astronomically higher level of popularity without having meaningful games played every week. So I don't know how this is diminishing college football's popularity when last year it was the most watched college football season ever.
Well, last year was the first year. So in 10 years, when you're putting these 2 playoffs side by side, who knows what that, if the popularity is just as high, then I've guessed poorly.
That's a fair point. We don't know, because we've lived a lifetime where the NFL playoffs, well, first of all, wasn't anywhere close to the expansion that it is now. When I first watched the NFL playoffs, there were 4 teams in each conference. There were 3 divisions. There were 3 divisions and a wild card.
Yes.
3 division winners and a wild card. So there were only 2 weeks of played 2, and then your NFC and AFC championship games versus basically on New Year's Day, you had your best teams playing in college football. On New Year's Day, you had 4 or 5 bowl games.
It was glorious. It was
Yes,
glorious.
it was
There was nothing
glorious.
better.
And there were another, people think that a long time ago there weren't that many bowl games. There were a lot of bowl games when I was 10 or 12 years old. There were still close to 20 bowl games.
But they were over in 1 to 2 days.
Well, no, they weren't over in 1 to 2 days.
Well, I'm saying obviously that New Year's Day was the
New
day.
Year's Day. But I'm saying that starting around December 17th or 18th, they
Right.
start playing bowl games, and you could see a bowl game on Tuesday night, the Liberty Bowl, and obviously kids are off school and people are taking time off, and so me personally, I'll just speak for myself. I loved watching the Liberty Bowl on Thursday night and the Gator Bowl on Friday night and so forth and so on. But then New Year's Day was, when the best teams played, and that didn't run into the NFL. Yes, to your point, the first round of the college football playoffs, they did their best to steer Notre Dame and Ohio State away from direct competition with the NFL. So they played the primetime games and didn't have to compete with the NFL. But the other 3 games, I think one on however it matched up. Anyway, we're in direct competition. I think it was 2 games. We're in direct competition on Saturday afternoon with NFL regular season games and got slaughtered.
Okay.
In the ratings.
I had not looked that up, but that was what I
December
suspected.
20th, the Clemson Texas game and the Penn State SMU playoff game were going up against regular season NFL games, and they got crushed. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to debate you. I'm actually think I'm going along with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I guess I'm trying to think of ways to shorten the season to make the regular season meaningful. To have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Well, we can talk fantasy land if you want. That's fine.
That's okay. That's okay.
I've produced videos and say this is the way college football should be structured, but I know that's never going to happen. Or we can try to work with
what reality brings us
feasible and try to correct some things. So you're wanting to
wanting to
make conference championships meaningful again, and you're going to do that by limiting the regular season and making a mini tournament. And I'm just saying that that's not reasonable in real life because you're eliminating too many games, and that's going to cost too much money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm with you there.
Wisconsin's only going to play 9 games instead of 12 games, and they're going to be done like in early to mid-November.
Well, we're not going to play Miami of Ohio. We're not going to play Sanford. We're not going to play Chattanooga State or whatever they are. All the games that we complained about.
You're not going to play any non-conference games?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
0 non-conference games.
0 non-conference games.
You don't want to see Oklahoma play Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, LSU, and I could go on and on and on.
I'm saying if I had a choice of wrapping up the season earlier and seeing those games, I would rather wrap it up earlier, have a legit conference, have a legitimate path to a championship.
Okay.
Because right now we're still in the same thing you and I were in when we were watching the AP and the UP polls come out. It all comes down to who thinks what to get these last little teams in. And I think I disagree a little bit with your last caller. And I don't believe in this day and age that we're limited to 7 or 8 teams. I think the NIL and the transfer portal have opened it up. And I think Indiana is a prime example of, somebody new can pop in, and you do want them to have that opportunity to pop in. But maybe that's not expanding the number of playoff spots to 32. Maybe that's more make them earn it in their conferences, and there we go. I mean, And if I can figure out a way to expand that to increase the money so that it's more feasible, my ears are open.
So you're going to wrap up the regular season / this conference tournament by the end of, like, on conference championship weekend. Now, this weekend would have been your conference championship game still.
I mean, you have to keep in mind, nobody mentions this anymore, but in theory, these kids are students. There's final exams coming up, and all of your other conversations you had about trying to make rules so the coaches don't have to leave early. A lot of these problems get solved if everything finishes early. If the season terminates before the kids have to figure out whether to transfer into the next school, then that makes a lot of things work better.
Yeah, but we're still going to play a 4-team playoff, right? You want conference champions to play in a playoff.
I do. I do.
Yeah. Like on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, give them so if we finish today, let's see, we're beginning of December. They got final exams in theory, and then you got the holidays. So yeah, that puts you that week after the Christmas holiday. You can maybe do your first round and your second round the week after.
Yes. Well, I don't completely mind it, and I would like conference championships to mean something. Now, back in our day, they meant something just because they meant something, not because they were tied to a playoff.
Exactly. We didn't care about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted my team to be the Big Ten champion.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Anything else?
No, that's about it. I guess I'll throw one out there
Sure.
at you. We have our super teams. I'm a little fearful of our transfer portal and going through the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade.
Oh, yeah.
We have the ability for these monster teams to be able to create it, and there's no way to limit that. There's no salary cap. There's no waiver wire. There's nothing akin to what the professional sports have. But that would be the way that would make the last caller profit, is that if something like that gets going, then you could have these little centers of power. And
Wasn't that always possible? Like, even if these players weren't paid, and it's 1990, and if they're being paid, it's a few bucks and it's under the table and it's all of that, but generally not being paid, that the best quarterback in the country signs at Alabama and goes and recruits who he wants to play with him.
well, that's true, but you had a limited number of scholarships.
Yeah.
And teams stuck with those scholarships. So if I get,
Yeah.
I don't know the number,
still
but
do.
there's a fixed number.
Yeah.
Once I offer a scholarship to this kid, he's there for the duration.
Yes.
I'm not dropping him and freeing up scholarships. Now we have this little transfer portal where, okay, we've all got 2 years of experience and we know who really are the stars versus the bust. It's a little bit different, I think. A little more of a sure thing. And it's almost akin to the professional baseball with their minor league systems. It's like, do some colleges become other colleges' little minor league system? Do they start working together to, hey, I want you to go recruit these guys, get them ready for me in 2 years. Let me know who the good ones are and the bad ones. That's a little conspiratorial, but.
Well, we're only 4 to 5 years, if that, into this. So there's a lot of people that I would like to see crunch a lot of numbers here in the next few years to figure out what is actually the case with some of these things. But I don't see, I don't see that as as the problem in terms of competition. But we appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great evening.
Yeah,
Get
have
some
a good
rest
night.
at some point tonight.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. This could prove to be the final. Well, we get yeah. This could prove to be the final call. We got Garrison stopping by. Garrison, what's going on?
Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. I'm good. How are you?
I'll tell you what. I'm I'm in like a weird situation, man. Like where I'm fine, somewhat aggravated, as you could imagine, me being a Buckeye fan.
Sure.
Yeah, and when where I'm aggravated has nothing to honestly to do with the team. It has more so to do with the fan base.
Oh, okay.
Um, no, I had Ohio State winning this game 34-17, which in reality, I mean, when you hear that, most people think that's a blowout, but I didn't see it that way. I kind of thought that, when I looked at Indiana throughout this season, when they played, Oregon, Iowa, and I'm missing one team, Iowa, Oregon, and someone else. I can't.
Penn
They had
State.
one. Penn State. Thank you. They had very bad droughts throughout those teams. And I think the worst of it was Iowa when they went punt, punt, downs, punt, punt.
Yeah.
And in this game, the defense, you couldn't. There's nothing you could say bad about the defense today with Ohio State. But with the offense, Julian threw that pick. Sure, I thought it should have been called pass interference, but if it wasn't, whatever, I guess, really. But Indiana's a good team, you know, and
Absolutely.
I think that within the Big Ten, and I won't say that within the Big Ten, outside the Big Ten, but I'm also realizing within the Ohio State fan base, they're looking at the name and the brand of Indiana, and they're not looking at the fact that they have one of the best wide receiver duos in the country. One of them got hurt today, by the way.
Yep.
You got a top 5 quarterback, one of the best offensive lines, one of the best running games. Every single one of those starting defensive linemen for them, starting with Kamara, will get drafted. Um, and the secondary, I could care less for. I thought that in the second half, Ohio State stupidly decided not to continue to attack them. I mean, when your best corner, Mark, is a 5'9",
Yeah.
170-pound guy, you need to attack him, and they did that in the first half, and they didn't continue to do that. But with all that being said, it sucks because I feel like coming out of this game, Mark, I feel the same way I did about the Georgia-Alabama game earlier in the season, where when Alabama won that game, I came out of that saying Georgia was better than them. And I feel the same way right now. And it sucks because I feel the same way I thought after that Michigan game last year. And ironically, it was 13-10, and I thought Ryan Day, when all season, when you have gone for it on fourth down and you've been one of the better fourth down teams in the country, it's fourth down and 1, and you decide not to go for it. I could not have been any more aggravated than that.
Okay. Yeah.
I was with my mom while my dad went to sleep because he wanted to watch it. I guess today now. I kind of want to text him and say, "Don't you dare watch that game." But my mom and I are watching it, and we lost our minds. Just we could, and her worse than I did, we just lost it. And even after the post game, Mark, when with Mike and I, we got into a discussion about it, and almost damn near argument. And I told him, I said, "Man, like you can bring up that kick all you want. What was Ryan Day thinking? You got to go for that." Now, at the same time, it sucks, Mark. Like I don't want to feel this way, but we still got stuff to play for. Same as we did last year, and it all worked out. But my goodness, I just couldn't understand for the life of me what went through Ryan Day's head going for that kick, because Fields has been good all year. Fine, cool, that's all right. That wasn't the time to kick that field goal. Yeah, that just wasn't. And so, as a fellow Buckeye, I want to know from you, what were your thoughts on when he did that?
Well, I thought he was going to go for it as well. But in terms of football, so the way football was approached from a coaching standpoint from way before I ever showed up or was born, all the way up until 10 years ago, 19 out of 20 times a coach would kick that field goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, and then, obviously analytics did not just show up one year. They've kind of progressively taken hold here in the last 15 or 20 years, whatever it's been. And we're starting to learn, it's pretty much common practice at this point that, if you went on YouTube, just grabbed an NFL game or a college football game, it wouldn't matter, from the 80s, let's say, and just played it, you would be surprised to see the decisions that were made. A team's gonna punt on 4th down almost all the time, unless, if it's 4th and 3 inches, they're gonna go for it. Or if they have to, they're down by 20 points in the 4th quarter and they have to. And sometimes that even, and I remember watching, and at some point in my life, I've lost track, starting to figure out, because I saw enough punts go into the end zone where I thought they were at the 38-yard line. They just punted the ball in the end zone. They just picked up 18 yards. Now, why wasn't it worth going for it on 4th and 2? And there's only so many possessions in this game, and they've got a really good offensive line, or whatever the case might be. And you started to see this take hold. So just understand that for the great majority of the history of college football and the NFL, it wouldn't even have been a second thought that you're down 13-10, it's 4th down, you're going to kick the field goal to tie the game. So I thought he was going to go for it. So I was slightly surprised when he sent out the field goal kicker, but I thought, okay, well, they've not made it a few times on 4th down, both last week against Michigan and this week. And obviously the safest play, and I'm trying to figure out what the yardage distance was exactly, but obviously
It was about 30, 35, 36. Maybe?
Yeah, but in terms of the distance, how much they had to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're talking about the field goal length.
Oh, it was maybe at the most a yard and a half.
Yeah. So it was too far to sneak it. And the push up front was pretty inconsistent in the run game. So yeah, I don't think that that's some horrific decision to make. What was Jaden Fielding going into this game? He was probably hitting 85 or 90% of his kick.
Not about 90.
Yeah. So
I think where I believe it's just egregious of him to do that is that the week prior, in the game, you were willing to go for it on 4th and 5 and go for the end zone with 3 tight ends on the field, but you won't do it there. And look, and Fielding, he's better than he was last year, but I just and I've always I've always been like the whole analytics and mananalytics thing. I try to I lean more towards manalytics.
Yeah.
And though the analytics, even though it sounds more like analytics to go for that, I thought at that moment in time it was more manalytics. And with the athletes you have, with the quarterback you have, you got to go for that. You have to. And I've also been of the mindset, and this has been since I was a kid playing football. If you can't get a yard, you don't deserve to win the game. And maybe that sounds, crazy to some people, but man, I just couldn't understand it. And overall, I'm not too mad about the loss. I think I'm more if I'm mad about anything, it's just the fact that we didn't win the Big Ten. And some people, they say, like, I heard a few podcasts say, this is just a exhibition game. Well, now that maybe in your eyes, maybe that's the way they think about it wherever you cheer for your team or how you feel about your team. I don't feel that way. I'm only 32 years old. That's not too old, Mark. But I do have some type of get off my lawn mentality, but about my conference and about my team. But he should have gone for that. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty and at the seems of it all, this is still we still have a lot to play for, and I'm not I guess I'm not too upset about it, but my goodness. I've never seen my team lose to Indiana. I think that's what's really getting. I think it's really what Peter Griffin says, grinding my gears.
Yeah.
I've never seen it,
Yep.
and I have a lot of respect for Indiana, mind you, Mark. I did lose a bet, so at some point tomorrow, I do have to post a video of myself singing the Indiana fight song. I
Okay.
tried it. I tried it tonight, Mark. I got maybe 3 lines through, and I just just couldn't even gut it out. Couldn't even finish it out. And oh my goodness, it was terrible. Not to mention my voice. I'm not the best singer.
Who was that bet with?
That bet. Mark, I'll have to send a text it to you because it was from these 2 Indiana fans who started a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe midway through Signetti's first last year.
Okay.
And they actually posted a video for a lot, like it got pretty viral on X. And they were basically saying that Ohio State isn't USC or LSU
Okay.
or
I had those guys on.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll have
Yeah,
to check it
yeah.
out. I basically told them that they were morons.
Yeah, it just and all the fact that I lost that bet to one of them just whoo, my goodness. But
Yeah. That's what
I'm
happens when you bet.
no, I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of my word.
There you go.
I'm the same guy that I had to wear. I lost a bet. I think the 2022 game against Michigan, and I wore in the middle of the winter, Mark. I wore a Michigan crop top to a bar. It was terrible. But yeah, it was terrible. But yeah, it's no at the end of it all, I am still proud of this team. I truly am. And I think I think they could still win it all. I think if they play their game, they can. There's no one that can beat them. I truly do believe that. And and of course, I would assume you know who Juck is.
Yes. That was
Yeah,
on the show a couple months ago.
awesome. But one day he told me, he said, Garrison, you hold Ryan. It was before the championship. He said, you hold Ryan Day's hand through the fire, and I've been proud about that. But there was ever a time I've been so ashamed it was this time, because that 4th and 1, boy. But no, what I truly want to do, and which I feel like I shouldn't have to do this, Mark, but to give encouragement to our fan base, and I know, like, I feel as though you're just like me, where you love the sport more than you love your old team. Would I be correct in that?
Oh, I don't even know how to phrase that at this point. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, so I don't even know if I'm capable of really a cognitive thought at this point. So you can take us home here, Garrison.
Well, listen,
If you
I'll say to all you Buckeye fans, it's gonna be fine. We still got a lot to play for, and at the end of the day, it's still OHIO, and go Bucks. Mark, appreciate you for letting me on here last second. I saw you on here, and I love talking football with you. So
Thanks,
you
man.
have a good evening, sir.
Appreciate it. All right. And we will take what I'm guessing is going to be a final call.
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, we got Michigan Man here. Well, I will tell you, Michigan Man, that I'm pretty much toast at this point. So you have the mic. I can't say that
Yeah,
I'm going to have too much of a response.
no, for sure. I'll say this, Mark. Not everybody can go 15-0. Not everybody can go undefeated and win the Natty like Michigan did in 2023. Very hard to do. It's not for everybody. Definitely not for the team down south. And I'll say Chris Signetti is the greatest. And this is going to sound crazy. His job in Indiana is the greatest coaching job I've ever seen in my life. It's the greatest coaching job I've ever seen in my life. It's 1,000 times more impressive than anything I've ever seen, Mark.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but here's a stat. Indiana had 7 blue chip players. Ohio State had 67. And they were clearly, and to me, they were the better team. I don't even think it's debatable. That's
Well,
crazy.
I think it's
That's crazy, Mark.
debatable. I think it's one game. I certainly think Ohio State's a better football team than Indiana, but they certainly weren't today. And maybe Indiana would beat them in a rematch. That certainly wouldn't be a shock to me or anybody that watches football. But I still think Ohio State's better. Yeah, Cignetti's been phenomenal. Now,
Can you name me another coaching job that even compares to this?
well, he's had the advantage of a transfer portal. You can't compare any other situation prior to 3 years ago in college football history. A coach didn't have the means to bring in a bunch of players, veteran players that know how to play in college football. They had to build recruiting class after recruiting class. Like Bill Snyder in Kansas State, he took over teams that were going 1-10, 3-8, 1-10, 1-10, 2-9, like over and over and over and over. He took that over, and within 3 or 4 years, he's going 9-2. So he did it, but it took a few years because he couldn't bring in a transfer portal.
Yeah, but even with the transfer portal, Mark, they still only have 7 blue chip players. And here's the thing. They are absolutely dominating everybody. Now they didn't dominate Ohio State tonight, but they're playing like the best team in the nation. Even those teams you brought up, were they the best team in the nation?
No, but they didn't have a transfer portal. So yeah, I am, again. We've been on here forever, and I'm not going to really go into it too much at this point at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, no, your point's well taken. Absolutely. Anything else for us?
All right, well, I got to go, Mark, but like I said, it's hard to go undefeated and win a playoff championship. Maybe Ohio State will do it one day, but not everybody can be
No,
Michigan. You know
Ohio
what I'm
State just
saying?
wins
All right,
more
go Blue.
championships. They just win more games and more championships. So this is going to be the Michigan take on everything, that they had won 15-0 season. Yes, let's not compare Ohio State to Michigan. There's no comparison between the two when it comes to football programs currently or in the past 75 years. There's just no comparison. If you think that there is, take your life span. I don't care if you're 12 or you're 25 or you're 55 or you're 80, and go look at every measurable of Ohio State and Michigan football during that time, whether that's winning percentage, the series record, major bowl wins, national championships, Big Ten championships, NFL draft picks, first round pick, any measurement, and Ohio State will have many more of those. Guaranteed. All right, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your fine contributions. It was much appreciated. And yeah, I will be back here at noon Eastern. So that's it's about 8 hours away. Gives me plenty of time to, well, we're certainly not going to sleep too much of that, but a little bit. We'll get some shut eye. All right. And yes, Roger Dodger, there were some advantages there by our friends up north. Roll Tide, Mark, with an incredible job tonight. Please hit that like button. Yes, please subscribe, hit the like button, do all those good things. And certainly, as we hope to carry on our show and carry on videos and do all the things that we do and have done to a greater extent, please use the Amazon link in the description section, because I'll just let you know that we're going to have a big show after the college football season is over. And we will kind of set the record straight at that point in regards to what we're doing, where we're headed, and what's going on here. So do appreciate you being here. And again, our congratulations go out to Duke, Indiana, Georgia, Tulane, Texas Tech, Kennesaw State, and James Madison, and Western Michigan. And we also have Boise State winning another Mountain West Conference championship, which, my goodness, they have dominated that conference like no other, but they're off to the Pac-12 next season. All right, folks, we will see you at noon Eastern time. My mic was muted. Anyway, thank you for the, I was just reading off those super chats, but thank you for the super sticker and the super chat that, yes, that could be what the doctor ordered in terms of an Ohio State loss to motivate the team. We've seen it before. We're going to find out here in the next 5 or 6 weeks. Somebody's going to win a national championship. And yes, I certainly did not expect Ohio State to continue to win and never lose another game ever. So they don't lose too many. All right. We will see you Sunday at noon Eastern.